You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
All right, good evening. My name is Peter Basserman, and I'm chairman of Branford's Inland Wetland Commission. I'll now open a regular scheduled meeting of the commission. Today is February 12th, 2026. It's now 7 o'clock. This evening's meeting is being conducted as a virtual meeting using the Zoom software conferencing platform. It's being held in accordance with Connecticut's Public Act 22-3 and the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses regulations of the town of Branford. Documents referenced during the meeting are available on the town's OpenGov portal or via the agency's webpage. Final agenda for tonight's meeting was filed on February 10th and is posted on the town website. Links to the material related to the meeting are included on the agenda. BCTV will be recording tonight's meeting, and we're certainly thankful for their service for the community. As a reminder for those speaking at this evening's proceeding, please be conscious of positioning your camera so your face is visible on the recording. Also, to ensure an accurate and complete record of discussions, each time a statement or comment is made during tonight's meeting, speaking party must announce his or her name before articulating any comment. This applies to any party wishing to participate. Those wishing to speak may use the raise your hand feature to indicate such a desire. Also, once the meeting has begun, please consider muting the microphone if you're not speaking. Since we may have some new parties participating tonight, this commission has the responsibility and authority to apply Connecticut statutes and Branford's Inland Wetland and Watercourses regulations to the matters it considers. Commission's role is limited to the protection, preservation, and regulation of inland wetlands and watercourses, and any land use activities that would likely have a significantly adverse impact on them. Commission cannot consider matters outside of those areas defined in our regulations and seeks to apply those regulations consistently and uniformly in its considerations. We'll now take a roll call of the commissioners on the call. And when I announce your name, please indicate by saying present. Commissioner Goklowski.
Commissioner Goklowski, present.
Commissioner Papantonis.
Commissioner Papantonis, present.
Commissioner Boda.
Can you hear me?
No.
Now, Commissioner Armstrong.
I'm present.
Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begman, present.
Okay, and let's see, we have staff. Jamie Frederick.
Present.
We have Olivia Sandberg.
Present.
And Heather Gwinnell.
Present.
Okay.
Have I found yet?
We have enough commissioners present for a quorum, and we will proceed as such. All commissioners are seated and able to participate and vote. Is there
Chairman Basserman? Sorry, Commissioner Mirsky is present.
I didn't see you on the.
I apologize. I just want to make sure that you saw that I was here.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Thank you for.
Where are we?
I was
There's
thinking
a lot
we
of
may have
people.
missed someone.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a lot of people on the screen. I just wanted to mention that.
got you. Thank you. Let's see what's next up. All right, we're going to look at the agenda that we have. First up on the agenda, I guess I have to ask staff if there's any changes, additions, or deletions for the agenda tonight.
No proposed changes.
Okay, then Item on the agenda first up is a minutes for our January 22nd, 26th meeting. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes?
I
This is-
motion to accept the minutes from January 22. This is Commissioner Armstrong.
Commissioner Goklowski, I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion on those minutes?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Begemon. For number 8, under other business, it says that Chairman Bassman moved to amend the vote. And it says to include this memorandum, which says it's attached in the meeting minutes. I don't see it. Maybe it was attached in the other meeting minutes, maybe for January 8th. And then I had a question whether we amended the vote or did we, I'm not sure about that language.
I think the language is correct. It was a little bit funky. Let's double check real quick.
This is Commissioner Bassman. The memorandum was dated the 22nd.
Which minutes?
Well, we're looking for
on your
the
website. All right.
This is Commissioner Bassman. The minutes we're looking at are the January 22nd, and I have a copy of a memorandum dated the 22nd regarding that bond issue.
All right. So these are the filed minutes. I'm not sure if the version that got sent out to the commissioners may have been shortened. January 12th, 22nd. Got the 2 pages, and then we've got the memorandum.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. My minutes show the memorandum on it on the 3rd page or 2nd page or 3rd page.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Begemon. I didn't scroll down far enough now. I see
Okay.
it. Okay.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Commissioner Begemon, was there 2 parts to the issue?
My other question is just, I amend the vote. If that's correct language, fine. It just sounded weird to me. I thought when we talked about it, it was an addendum, not an amendment, but maybe, I didn't know if there was a procedure that if you vote on something in one meeting and then have something added to it, whether the same commissioners have to vote on it, whether you just have to have a quorum. So I just thought I'd bring that up because I don't know the process.
Very good question. We can look into it and bring it back if the motion wants to be withdrawn. Or if everyone's comfortable, we can look into it for future.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. We can actually approve the minutes minus that particular item on the minutes until we have a chance to do it. I mean, we have a lot of stuff to go through tonight. This is a very small item to be concerned with.
All right, so we've had discussion. Can we do a roll call vote and see if this thing has enough stuff behind it to get approved? Commissioner Mursky,
Commissioner Mirsky, aye.
Commissioner Boda,
Do I have sound?
Yes.
Commissioner Papatonis,
Abstain.
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Armstrong,
Commissioner Armstrong, aye.
Commissioner Goklowski,
Commissioner Goklowski, aye.
Commissioner Begemon,
Commissioner Begemon, nay.
Commissioner Bassman, aye. All right, we're moving on. We're now having an item on the agenda, which is public hearing. We actually have 2 of them. Commissioners that are seated for public hearings are required to be fair and independent, not predisposed to any outcome. Commissioner must decide the merit of the application for the facts as they appear on the record from their own personal observations and expertise, and if needed, expertise from third parties with qualified technical credentials. Permit decisions must be concluded within timeframes specified by the Connecticut statutes and our regulations. As noted on the agenda, I'll now open Inland Wetland 25.6. As there are 2 public hearings scheduled for this evening's meeting, and the material is of a detailed nature requiring concentration and critical thinking, I'm going to set a 2-hour time limit for this first item, 25-6. We'll begin with the applicant's review of the material submitted for this application, followed by input by the peer review group, and then questions and comments from the commission. If there are public comments, they will follow. Can I see an indication of how many members wish to comment tonight from the public? Is there no one looking to comment? Oh, here we go.
There are 3 hands raised, and just real quick.
Okay, there's the third. Okay, that'll help, I think, as we try to manage the
we're getting more hands raised as we go.
Please be considerate. Thank you. Please be considerate of the time when asking questions or presenting testimony so that all parties have an opportunity to be heard. If the discussions require additional time to complete, the hearing will be continued. After all parties have concluded their testimony and questions have been addressed, the public hearing will be closed. And then by state statute, we have 335 days to make a decision. So I'm at this point going to turn it over to, I think, Mr. Knopf, and you can take the floor, sir, with your presentation.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Knopf. I'm an attorney with an office at 42 Cherry Street in Milford, Connecticut. And I'm here tonight on behalf of Compass Health, which is the contract purchaser of the 3 properties at 596, 612, and 616 East Main Street. We've been before you before on a couple of different evenings on this project, but because we are opening the public hearing, obviously you'll forgive me if we are a little bit redundant with what we've have told you before. We understand about the 2-hour limit, so we'll be as concise as possible so to give as much time as possible to the commission and the peer reviewers. Just to recap, and for any members of the public who have not participated or seen the other meetings we've had, my client proposes to construct an inpatient rehabilitation hospital treating those recovering from stroke, as well as spinal cord and orthopedic. Typically, the stay will be about 2 weeks, and the average age of a patient is about 75 years old. The property consists of 20.63 acres. The hospital will be located in the southwest portion of the site, which is the site portion that is currently mowed and very few trees, and approximately only 22% of the site will be impervious. It features 2 man-made ponds and some wetlands, and we propose repurposing one of those man-made ponds as a stormwater detention basin. A little bit of housekeeping. We have provided certificates of mailing to all the neighbors previously, and we have posted 3 large signs, 1 on each parcel, and those went up in compliance with your regulations, I think, on January 30th. As I noted, you are familiar with the application. The application was received on December 11th. You avoided a snowstorm by doing the sidewalk on December 13th. You were kind enough to hold another special meeting for us on December 16th, at which point you decided to hold a public hearing based upon being a significant activity, and also voted to have a peer review. We provide our alternative analysis on January 8th. Our peer reviewers also dodged a snowstorm, and they walked the site on January 23rd. We received the peer review on February 2nd. We believe it's fair. We take no exception to its comments. We do note that they indicate that the proposed wetland enhancement is suitable per section 7.9 of the regulations. On February 6th, last Friday, we had a call with Jamie and Olivia and the peer reviewers, and we believe that call was very productive. And then on February 9th, we responded to all the peer review comments. What's important is our response letter indicates that we will be making a number of plan revisions, but in an effort to not do this in an iterative basis and frankly follow the record with lots of different iterations of plans, We want to have the hearing this evening, hear what the commission has to say, and then Eric and Matt, who you'll be hearing from in a moment, can do one wholesale set of revisions that will respond to not only the peer review, but anything else that might come up this evening. We would anticipate that we can submit those in fairly short order, but obviously it depends on what occurs this evening. So as before, with us tonight are Matt Regan, who's our certified soil scientist, and Eric Lindquist, who's our professional engineer, both from Ty and Bond. And so I will now turn it over to Matt.
Thank you, John. Matt Regan, Ty and Bond, wetland scientist. So on June 13th, 2025, I conducted a field investigation for the presence of wetlands and watercourses at the site. The site is bound to the north by the Branford River, a YMCA to the east, East Main Street to the south, and commercial properties to the west, as shown here. I identified 3 wetlands and 1 regulated watercourse, which are identified on this site plan. Wetland 1, which is that wetland that's being hovered over right now, is an isolated man-made freshwater pond located in the north central portion of the site. Wetland 2 is a forested shrub emergent wetland in the western portion of the site. And I assume that wetland 2 connects towards off-site towards Branford River. Wetland 3 in the southeastern corner is another isolated man-made pond. And watercourse 1, all the way at the northern boundary, is the Branford River, a perennial watercourse that flows in a southwesterly direction on the northern boundary of the site. Okay, so after doing my field investigations, I evaluated the functions and values of each of the wetlands. The principal functions for wetland 1 and wetland 3 are flood flow alteration and nutrient removal. The principal function for wetland 2 is nutrient removal. And additional functions and values are lacking because the property is privately owned with no public access. Wetlands are minimally visible from the road. They do not contain abundance of flowering vegetation and are not located within known habitat for endangered species. Nutrient removal is principal wetland function for all the wetlands because of potential sources of excess nutrients from the surrounding developed landscape. The wetlands may receive inputs such as fertilizers, pesticides, and road salt from the surrounding landscape. Wetland 2 has multiple wetland cover types that may utilize excess nutrients. And wetlands 1 and wetland 3 are both man-made artificial ponds, saturated for most of the time with deep water habitat. The dominance of invasive plant species in these 2 man-made ponds, such as common reed, indicates excess nutrients are being utilized in these 2 wetlands. Flood flow alteration is a principal function for wetland 1 and 3, primarily because of their landscape position. Due to the amount of development in the surrounding area, effective flood storage above these wetlands is small. And the wetlands exist in relatively flat areas that receive and retain sheet flow runoff from the surrounding uplands. And also the hydric soils present in these wetlands can absorb and detain this water before flowing to the Branford River. Wetland 1 and wetland 3 have limited functions due to their nature of being artificially created ponds dominated by invasive plant species such as invasive common reed. The principal functions are the results of being excavated entirely within uplands and holding water surrounded by a developed landscape, not naturally occurring wetlands. They lack diverse vegetation to provide wildlife habitat, and they lack hydrological connectivity with the Branford River or other naturally occurring wetland systems to provide fish and shellfish habitat, sediment shoreline stabilization, and other functions and values. With that, I'll turn it over to Eric to present the project.
Thank you, Matt. For the record, my name is Eric Lindquist. I'm a senior project manager and senior associate at Ty & Bond and a licensed engineer in the state of Connecticut. So Matt gave an overall overview of the site and the existing conditions of wetlands on site. As noted, this is the proposed development that Encompass is coming to before you with tonight. As was noted by John early on in the commentary, this site is intended and our layout is specifically designed to maintain this project completely within the developed area as much as possible. There are a few areas where we stretch into some existing wooded areas in this corner along this side and some clearing that needs to occur in the front for sight lines. But this site is primarily located within the grassed area of the site where there's existing development. And this is the pond back here, which we've been speaking of, the man-made pond that was created by the owner, the prior owner. In the rear here, this is what's going to be excavated and reused for storm retention. The location of this pond was very fortuitous. The third-party review engineer even noted that as well in their review, that this location is ideal for stormwater retention given the site layout and configuration. So it really is the ideal location, and by providing these stormwater controls, we're able to remove those invasive species, which I'll get to in a minute, and provide a permanent pool. A lot of new wetland species that are plant species that are more conducive for this type of environment that I can show you on the planting plans. But this is the general layout for the site. There will be two entrances out onto East Main Street, one on the far eastern side and one on the far western side of the site that provide a continual loop around the site that services the building. This is a flat building located at the same grade all around, so it is a flat pad for this whole development with some undulations here and there to provide for drainage structures and just accessible access and things of that nature. So as I go through here, we'll get into a little bit more of the specifics on this. This is the stormwater management plan, which shows the grading along the sides. This is broken up into two sheets just for clarity. It gets kind of confusing if it's zoomed out too far. But there'll be a series of catch basins around the entire site. All this, I would say about 90% of the drainage, I don't have the exact number on me, but I can get that for you if you need, goes out to the rear pond. There is one structure here with a water quality structure that will take runoff from this area of the front of the parking area. This is simply because of the fact that we want to intercept this flow before it gets out onto the state roadway. And we provided a separate discharge here with a level spreader that will control flow and maintain flow to the wetlands. Obviously, I'll get to a watershed map in a little bit to show the comparisons and how we're trying to match and make sure we're being consistent with drainage patterns on site, which is something we always try to achieve and maintain. But the large mass quantity of the runoff does go out to the rear of the site, and that can be seen here. So from both sides of the building, we have the drainage coming out back. There'll be a water quality structure in the rear of the building, which will provide removal of sediments and oils and things of that nature before discharging into a sediment forebay, which will help alleviate some of the sediments that do make its way through the structure, the smaller particle sizes. And then there will be a wet detention pond at the rear of the site, which will maintain a permanent pool for size for the water quality volume of the site per deep requirements for a wet pond. There will be an out control structure on the far northern corner of the pond, which will have a low flow orifice to maintain that permanent pool within the pond and a vegetated shelf with the preferred wetland species. And then that'll have a overflow weir system and controlled weir structures within the out control structure that will allow us to maintain peak flows from the pond to the north and out towards the Branford River. We do have a level spreader out here. And as noted, there was a third-party review. I'm more than happy to go through any of the comments on that if any of you ever had a chance to review that. One of their comments was to widen this up, so we take no exception to that. So this will be widened, this level spreader, to provide a little bit broader of a sheet flow out to the hillside to help prevent concentrated flow going out to the north. There were also some comments from the town, which we can get into. I know I discussed them in the preliminary about flattening the grades off here and providing a wall. There's some comments over here about tweaking the grading. So all that will be done in the revised plan set that does come back as part of the one complete set of revisions that John had noted. Erosion control was in the set, will be done in primarily two major phases. Obviously, as things are going, there'll be smaller phases as we kind of build into the site. But the goal is to maintain the existing residential driveway to facilitate the initial phases of construction and maintain the existing driveway over here with anti-tracking aprons. We would obviously provide protections around the perimeter of the site in all locations with hay bales and silt fence. There was a request to add water bars here from the third-party review engineer. We agreed to that, and those will be added on the following plan set. We would provide locations for sediment traps to collect sediment from this flatter area that we're going to have to excavate and kind of maintain out there until the building gets started. Those will help alleviate throwing excess amounts of sediment out to the retention pond. So this will get further elaborated on in the revised sets. One of the comments that came back from peer review was how this was going to get phased and constructed the pond. It was some very good questions that they came up with, which we're going to be incorporating into the plan. Essentially, we're going to have 2 storage piles back here that will be part of the erosion control plan. One will be for spoils from the pond as we remove material, so the lower layers of material that are pulled out to make the appropriate volume in the pond will be staged in one area so that they can be dried and then potentially reused on site. Then there'll be another pile for invasive species that'll be allowed to sit on another staged area over on the side, which will allow those to dry out and then be removed from the site and taken to a landfill. Obviously, we have further erosion controls back here. There were questions about how this will be dewatered. There'll be a series of hay bale checks that come down the hill. Those will also be added to this plan. The pond will be pumped out in this location. And the idea is to have this work done as early as possible, have the pond stabilized before we start discharging flow from the site to it so that it's functioning and operating to its the effectiveness that we are looking for. Moving forward, these are obviously the details for the erosion control. We don't need to go through all these. This is some more detailing showing a section through the pond in both directions to kind of show you what's being done. The existing pond is arbitrarily shown here. We don't have obviously the bottom of the pond, so that's just sketched in here with a dash, but that could go a little bit deeper than it's shown. And this is a bit exaggerated too, to kind of really emphasize what's going on there. So it's not as big an excavation as it appears here based on the exaggerated scaling. As I go forward, this is the planting plan. As you can see, it's a very robust planting plan. The red trees are the ones out in front that will be removed as part of the sightline requirements to meet the state requirements for visibility of the roadways and driveways. But there'll be a series of perimeter plantings that, baseline of foundation plantings around the building. The area where we're demoing the building over here, this will be grass mostly with some trees to help provide a nice buffer. There'll be various landscape buffers along the property lines to the neighbors. We're trying to maintain the tree lines on all the other sides and provide some plantings at the base of the wall. We're going to probably beef up the plantings in the close proximity to the wetlands. That was another comment that came from the third-party review, as well as the town review, about the proximity of the wetlands and just trying to do things to help protect that close range of construction activities. But this will be a wall here, which will help protect, retaining wall right here, that will help protect any degradation to the wetlands, because retaining walls are excellent for preventing erosion down the hillsides. They kind of act as a barrier wall. So the placement of this wall is actually in a great location for helping prevent and protect that wetlands. As noted before, there will be a series of wetland plantings and enhancements to the wetland to make this a more functioning and aesthetic wetland. So those are shown here, and those have also been reviewed by the third-party engineer. So that's essentially the layout of the site and what we're proposing out here. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or go through the memo from CLA Engineering. But I'm more than happy to pass it along to you, John, if you want to take it from there.
Thanks, Eric. So I think we're doing pretty well, Mr. Chairman. We're only at 7:27. So if you want to go to commission questions or the peer review, then we can continue on.
Yeah, I guess I think it would make some sense, since some of the peer review items have been addressed by Mr. Lindquist's comments. Maybe we go to the peer review, and then the commission can have both of the material that was reviewed to comment on. So why don't we turn to the peer review folk and see what their comments are at this point.
Sure, I can start off. Kyle Hobbert from CLA Engineers. We're located.
Can you turn up your volume a little bit?
Oh, sure. How is that better?
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Again, Kyle Hobbert from CLA Engineers, located at 317 Main Street in Norwich. I'm a professional engineer with the company. I did the engineering review for this project for the third-party review. And with me tonight is Bob Russo from our office. He's a certified soil scientist, and he reviewed those aspects of the project. Bob and I both walked the site on January 23rd, prior to the heavy snowfall, thankfully. And we also reviewed all of the application documents, the plans and the reports that were submitted as part of the application. It was a very thorough set of documents and reports and plans that were provided. We then went through the documents and provided a series of about 26 comments to the plans and to the reports. We have subsequently met remotely with the applicant's team, and they had provided a response letter noting how they would plan to address the comments in our letter. And essentially, I think their plan to address the comments from our letter is appropriate, and when incorporated into a plan set, would be in good shape. And Bob, please feel free to add on to any of your comments.
Sure. For the record, Bob Russo, CLA Engineers. I think Kyle has summarized it well. We walked the site. We did a review of the plans, and as you can tell from the comments from the applicant's team, they are planning on addressing all of those comments. And based on the meeting that we had with them, we think that those are appropriate ways of addressing them. If the commission has specific comments that they've read and are concerned with, we'd be happy to talk further about those.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Mr. Russo, Mr. Habert, are there any items that were raised in your report that are still outstanding in terms of solutions to the items that were raised?
I will, Kyle, if I could just jump in for a minute.
Yep.
There is only one item that comes to mind for me that the commission may wish to consider. You'll note that the applicant soil scientist indicated that he delineated wetlands on site, but wetland number 2, which is on the western side of the property, the delineation didn't extend all the way to the property boundary. And the applicant's team has indicated that they believe that it goes to the property boundary at some point and eventually connects to the Branford River. I just raised the question. It's for the commission's consideration. If they're content with delineation, the extent of the delineation that's present on the plans. My concern was raised because where the end of the delineation of wetland 2 is shown is still close to the activities, the wetland activities in that pond and in the northwest corner of the site. The applicant may wish to comment upon that, but I just wanted to let the commission know that that was one aspect I saw in the plans that they might want to consider.
And as a follow-up, the concern, if you could express it again, in terms of that, I guess, red extension?
Certainly. My concern was, depending upon where that wetland boundary extended, the upland review zone area might change. In other words, if that wetland delineation extended to the east toward the pond, there might be some additional consideration on the commission's part for activities that were going to occur in and around the pond.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Goklowski, and I'm not sure who can answer this question. There is going to be some. You're going to enhance the current man-made pond. Is that correct?
Correct.
And are you making it deeper? Or are you making it? You're not making it wider or bigger. You're just enhancing what is currently already there. And
yes, the what we're doing for the pond is the limits of the grading. So this is the berm of the pond, and if I zoom in, it's a little clearer. But this right here is essentially where the wetland line is essentially the berm of the pond. This is where it's flat and you can kind of walk around it and have maintenance and this is the grassed area as you walked out the site. None of that from the berm in is where this work is being done. So essentially we're going to be carving out this pond to provide the DOT or the deep required wet pond parameters. So you need to have 1-on-3 slopes with I believe it's a 1-on-6 vegetated shelf at the water surface line. And then it goes at 1-on-3 again. So in order to meet those requirements and what they lay out in the stormwater quality manual, that's what the grading has been done. And that results in, you also have to have I believe it's a 4.5-foot standing water surface elevation, which prevents, discourages like phragmites and things like that. So it needs to have a certain depth. So all those parameters are what have kind of built this, as well as the water quality volume. So at the end of the day, there will be a little extra excavation out of the bottom of the pond likely. I don't know the exact bottom depth of the pond. We didn't go out there with a pole and measure it, but my expectation is that it will be cutting out a couple of feet. That will take this down a little bit deeper, but the perimeter of the pond, none of that will change. It's simply reshaping the interior of the pond.
So so the point is you're trying to make the pond better than it currently is.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Basserman. What's the source of the water currently in the pond? Is it stormwater and groundwater? What supplies the pond today?
The primary source of, and I could share this. I didn't show this before, but this is the watershed for the area. This is the existing watershed. So you can see EXWS1B is the area that drains to the pond currently. So that is the primary source of water. There may be some groundwater overland flow that kind of comes because this is a naturally occurring hill, and I could let Matt speak a little bit further on this if you'd like. But basically, those are the two potential sources of water, the primary source being this overland flow to the pond. And one of our concerns, which we laid out in our alternatives analysis, is in the proposed condition, you can see the watershed for this pond now is significantly smaller. So that's one of the reasons that also behooves us to use this to maintain water flow to it, because this development does cut into that watershed area significantly.
And a different question, this Commissioner Basserman, I believe you said there was no hydrological connection from that pond to anywhere. Is that also true of wetland number 3 and the pond there? It's self-contained. It doesn't go anywhere.
Matt, I could let you speak to that one.
I did not delineate any way that it would connect off-site. However, it's possible that it does. It's possible that there is a culvert, but that was not the point. We're not doing anything over there. So I don't think that if it does connect, it would just connect across the street. But again, I did not see while I was out there a culvert that went underneath the road. That doesn't mean that it's not there. Eric, I don't know if there was a survey for that area to pick up a culvert.
I don't recall seeing one either. There is a wetlands on the other side of the street, and there may be connectivity between these two. It just wasn't in our area of review, and we didn't necessarily look at that because our area of scope was in this area. But like Matt said, there may be a culvert in there. I could look at the survey and see if there was something, but I don't recall seeing anything.
And what's the disturbance in the area that abuts that pond? It looks like you got the yellow demarcation line. What, if any, disturbances in that area?
This isn't a disturbance line as much as it is a watershed that's just delineating where the flows are going for this design point. So point A is where the flow is going. So this is just the water area that's going to it. So we're obviously not disturbing the dark green areas up here either. So basically, if I zoom in on, if I go to the proposed plan, you'll see there is an existing building here. It's a little hard to see. It's the existing commercial building that's here, L-shaped. That's going to be demolished, and this is going to be turned into grass and plantings. There's an existing driveway that services these two residential buildings that will be maintained through here, and that's not changing. So from the wetlands, you're going to have an existing roadway to remain driveway. So that's your immediate connection that won't be touched. And then everything to the southwest of that will be demolished and enhanced by plantings and grass and things of that nature.
Thank you. And that red line BC, I couldn't read the legend.
That's a
What is
that's a time of concentration path. Essentially, what that is it's the hydrological furthest point away. So when we're measuring flows for a watershed, you need to understand how long it takes for a drop of water that lands in the hydrologically most remote point to make its way through there, and that's how you calculate flow for a watershed. So that's just showing the longest path of water that falls in that watershed. So this is the longest path it takes for water to go in there. That's the longest path for here, and that's how we determine flows.
Thank you. I guess at this point, it's commission time.
This is Commissioner Begemon. I had two questions. There was mention of a 4-foot high fence, metal fence with vinyl mesh. Is that a temporary fence around the pond, the big pond in the back?
No, that was a request, and it's something we typically show. You should have safety fence around a pond, just so people don't go, like children don't come up to it, or anyone goes into it or trips into it. It's a security hazard. So fences are added for that. So one of the ways to address that is we chose a black vinyl mesh chain link fence that's 4 feet tall. The reason I personally prefer black vinyl is from a distance you don't even see it. It blends into the background because the black just blends in. So I think those are aesthetically the best looking, but people have used split rail fences, which I don't think work as well for safety, that people like just because they're more natural looking. But like I said, I don't think they provide the safety measure that they're intended to provide, so I don't prefer recommending them.
Commissioner Begemon, so does that change the value of the wetland? Because it's going to be a barrier to critters that crawl to go to that area?
Matt, I could let you speak on that in terms of chain link fence.
It depends on if the chain link fence will have a it'll be wildlife friendly. So sometimes these types of fences that are meant to keep humans out, they can have a gap in the bottom that would let certain species pass through. So if that's something that the commission requests, Eric, you could speak to if that could be something that could be included in the design.
We can definitely talk about it, or we could provide a section on the backside that's maybe a wooden post fence that provides better access and more in the safety stuff, more on the pedestrian, on the commercial use side, just so we can kind of provide the best of both worlds. I'd be open for something like that, maybe.
And Commissioner Begemon, a second question. Down by the pond, there's a water quality structure before the water goes into that big pond that would have to be maintained by what kind of vehicle? I know that you were going to add some sort of path for a vehicle to get there, but my understanding is that with certain of these sediment, BMPs, you need certain kinds of trucks with certain kind of suction.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. So one thing that before construction documents, I was actually going to change. Right now, this is called out as a location for the water quality structure. I want to change it to be this structure here. This is an acute enough angle so that this will work. So I'd prefer to have it here so that a pumper truck could pull up here and actually service it from this location. So they wouldn't have to leave the driveway. The location of just for your edification, the location of the maintenance access path is going to be essentially right here. So there'll be a reinforced turf so that you're not just tearing up the roadway here. It's like a plastic honeycomb device that lays flat, that's filled with soil that grass can go through, but it's structurally reinforced so vehicles can go over it. We've used them for emergency vehicles around buildings and things of that nature. But basically that path will go down here. There'll be a perimeter fence with a pickup truck or whatever can drive around here as needed, clean out the forebay as needed, get rid of if anything's growing that shouldn't be because sediment's collected, what have you. And that'll have access to loop around and come out this access path.
Commissioner Begemon, thank you. And the third question has to do with what is the grade of the slope to the west of the retaining wall?
Down here?
Oh.
That's 1 on 3.
So that's been changed? Wasn't it steeper than that before?
There was a question before that came up whether this was 1-on-3 or not, and it is. The slope over here is the one that's 1-on-2 or a little flatter than 1-on-2. That's one where we're going to probably have to put a wall in here and provide 1-on-3 above and below it with like a 2 or a 2.5 foot wall at the steepest area.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Wasserman. What's the, I guess, construction time from shoveling the ground to, occupancy?
I wish I was better with numbers and timeframes. I don't recall off the top of my head. I believe it's about a 12-month or a 15-month construction schedule, if I'm not mistaken. John, if you have it handy, that'd be great. But I don't have it in front of me, but I can get that number for you.
I guess the concern is, as the site progresses, the stormwater management controls. How are we protecting the site as it goes through its various phases of construction if the management controls that are put in at its inception aren't the right ones as the construction progresses?
Well, we do have a phased erosion control plan. I'll share the full set of drawings I have, and I can go through this really quickly. But there's a construction sequence that's included in there, so we can never capture every possible scenario of stages of construction or what have you out there. So as I go through this, I showed you before the initial phase. This is basically, this is even further along than probably a really initial phase where they'd set up a staging area in here likely and start to do some earthwork in this area. But basically, this is the initial phase, and then there's also a final phase plan, which shows a more kind of end stage scenario where we're still having the erosion control perimeter set up, the wall's been built, there's inlet protection and things of that nature. There are notes included as well in here calling for the contractor to amend things as needed. There'll be inspections being done throughout the process as part of the Connecticut General Permit process. So as things are seen in the field, there'll be repairs requested, there'll be edits requested, just making sure everything's maintained and protected throughout the entire construction sequence.
This is Commissioner Bosserman again. I thought when you made your comments regarding the pond that the work on the pond, the existing pond, Wetland 1, would be done in its early stage.
Correct. That's the intent, is to have this done initially. For one of the first things that's done, I should say before we start discharging flow to it, we're going to want to do this correction and get the plantings in there and the slope stabilized and have this outlet control in place. So that's one of the first things we're going to want to have done, initially done, and then some more of the significant earthwork in here and storm drainage could then be done afterwards and start discharging to the pond.
And do you have a handy memory on what the construction sequence designation is on your plans?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The number, the sheet number for the construction sequence.
Right here, it's C505.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Boda. Earlier, Mr. Lindquist, you had mentioned about the sediment traps in the closer to Route 1 section. Can you just go back and review, and is there multiple on site? Where's that sediment getting trapped before going to the pond?
The idea of the sediment trap is when you have large areas of clearing, you can have, especially when it's excavated for putting a foundation down, you're going to have a lot of exposed earth that's not stabilized. There's no grasses on it. So during construction, you can see construction sites, the mud will get moved around and things like that. So the idea is to have, when you get a certain big enough area, like about an acre to a half an acre, you start wanting to look at sediment traps and sediment basins to provide places for the water to go to kind of settle out sediment. And that's what these basins are designed for. So essentially, in this area, this whole area here is designed to kind of go to this sediment trap right here. And then the back area will go to this sediment trap so that this water is clean before it goes into these pipes and goes out to the pond. So essentially in the new set of plans, you get the revised set will have the detail for this, but there's a dewatering kind of sump, I'll say for a better term, but essentially it's a riser pipe with the perforations on it and stone around it. So the dirty water will kind of come into it, and then that crushed stone, as well as the filter sock around the perforated pipe, will kind of filter the water out. So clean water goes into the pipe and out to the pond. And the pond itself will act as a settling area. So as the water sits in there, the sediment will kind of settle out of the water, trying to keep that material on site so that the clean water goes out to the back. So that's essentially what those basins are for.
So this is Commissioner Boto. So sorry, okay. That pond is not part of that sediment trapping, but rather as a detention pond for the water that has already been cleared out.
And I want to have these basins in here as well, because if we don't put these basins in and we just put dirty water out to the pond, then that water settles out in the pond more, the permanent pond we're going to have. And, we'll have to excavate it out later and after we've planted it. So we want to keep the pond and back as clean as possible by trying to collect these sediments and do all the erosion controls on the site side as much as we can.
And this is Commissioner Boto, and that using that pond as a sediment trap is not in alignment with the current deep water, the stormwater manual. Is that right?
It's not that it's not aligned with it. It's just I'd prefer to keep, we're doing all this work to the pond and we're putting all these nice plantings in there. I wouldn't want to go back in after the fact and have to excavate and clean up and replant it and seed it. So it's just trying to save a step and keep it as clean as possible, and keep the vegetation there as long as possible and not have to replace it.
Okay, thank you. And post-construction, can you walk through just a little bit, in a little bit more detail, the treatment train for all of the site, including the roof runoff, and any different sections of the property?
Sure. So basically the entire site, the building perimeter will have a bunch of roof leaders that come down and are collected around the building. I can zoom in and show this. It's largely going to be, the roof leader lines are here connecting at various places in the buildings. There's area drains in the grassed areas. There's catch basins in the parking lot. All these things kind of come together and they're collected. Each of these will have sumps on them, which will help, add some further sediment collection within the catch basins. The pre-treatment, as we noted, and it was discussed before, and in this case over here, we have an inlet water quality structure. So this will have that pre-treatment before it discharges. This one doesn't have a pond or any retention involved with it, other than the minimal amount that's in this level spreader. But we've overcompensated for that in the rear pond because we don't have the ability to do it out front. Excuse me. So these large areas will go out to the back. As we noted before, there's a water quality structure here. That's the pre-treatment. The sediment forebay is also pre-treatment that allows for sediment to come out into the pond beforehand. And then there's the water quality line within the pond, which provides a cooling factor. It provides a way for the water to settle out sediments once the site is stabilized. So this falls under the wet pond of the Connecticut deep water quality requirements, and the algal control kind of maintains that. And then once again, we have a level spreader out back. This is a small pool that kind of allows water to kind of slow down. There's riprap here, which slows velocity down. The pond here, the small little water pond, is about a foot deep, allows the water to kind of come in there and then go out as a level unit out to there, so we don't have any more reanimation of sediment down the hillside and things like that. That was one of the comments that came back from the third-party reviewer, was trying to make sure we prevent isolated, point discharge, and we want to have that sheet flow. So that's the whole train. There's the pre-treatment with the catch basins. There's obviously a maintenance plan in the engineering report, which goes through how routine maintenance is done on parking lots, making sure they're swept semi-annually, making sure all these things are inspected to make sure they're working properly, they're cleaned out properly, so that they're functioning properly. And all that treatment train effect of the catch basins, the maintenance, the forebays, that's all the pre-treatment to the primary pond, which will provide your overall water quality mitigation.
Thank you. And again, Commissioner Boto, at can you talk a little bit about beyond that level spreader? That's where we start to head toward the river. And I was just wondering about vegetation beyond that.
Yeah, so let me let me show you the detail for the level spreader just to give you an idea of what that is. So basically, it doesn't show the outlet, but there'll be an outlet like this that comes out of that discharge. And this, like I said, this is modified riprap, so it provides the energy dissipation through the rock. These are large, 12-inch stones. They'll come down the hillside here, and they'll go into this area where the water will pool a little bit and build up about a foot before it goes over the level spreader, which we like to propose a concrete cast in place curb that allows it to be laid level and flush to make sure you have an even level spread, which will go down the hill. And then in terms of plantings, I can go to wrong one. We have this, and if one of the things I've asked my landscape architect to do is, and part of one of the comments was to lengthen this level spreader out to take up more of this area to provide that level spread. We're also going to rotate this a little better to align with the contours. And I've asked my landscape architect to look at potential decorative grasses and things of that nature that could help further enhance this discharge as well. So all three of those items will be incorporated into the next set when we resubmit.
Okay. This is Commissioner Boda, is there plans, speaking of all the snow that we've had, for snow stockpiling areas?
Yeah, so I can go back to this might be the best plan to discuss it. So there are a few areas which we have to provide it. And maybe the grading plan might do it a little better. If I go to that set, that might be a little even better to show some of this on. So especially in this area, so when we put that wall in here, it's going to get a little flatter. So this area along the backside of the curb will be one area where we have like a 3 or 4 foot shelf to put snow. The entire back area here on this side will be able to have a shelf for snow as well. Along this side of the building, there's a considerable amount of grassed area that can be provided for a shelf of snow in this area as well as along the frontage of the roadway in this area. We wouldn't want to put it towards the building, but along this frontage of the street, where we have a little bit of a knob here that will hide it, and not necessarily be huge piles because there's not much pavement in front. But we see it as this being area back here that we could put snow as well. So it's along the perimeters of the site. We wouldn't put anything on the high side of the wall over here on the wetland side, obviously. But trying to put it in places that make sense where we have landscaped areas that don't have high congested plantings.
Thank you. Again, this is Commissioner Boda. Can you just point out where any stockpiling would be? I know you talked a little bit about pulling the material out from the pond itself, but with the remainder of the site?
Yeah, so those two stockpiles I mentioned when we send the revised set of plans will be located in this area, roughly right here, just in the grass area to the south of the pond. In the other phases, and this is just our best get. Obviously, a contractor is going to have a better understanding of where it makes sense to put these piles. I don't see a concern wherever these are located throughout this area of the site. I prefer putting them towards the back, but not so far back that it's close to the area of the ponds or anything like that, but something centrally located, convenient to where the work's being done. I think this is a good spot away from the walls, but close enough that it could be utilized wherever. But if this location gets bigger or moves around, I'm not overly concerned with it, but it could likely go in anywhere in this whole area back here.
Okay, and it's just the one.
As of now, if they wanted to do two, I wouldn't want to put a restriction on that per se, because I don't know how much material is going to be generated at any one time and how they're going to place it when they're going to put the walls in. That's really a means and methods for the contractor, but this is just a general guide to give them instruction on what we think would be a wise way to do it.
Mm-hmm. I'm okay for now.
Amy Frederick in the Wetland Agent. I do have a follow-up question off of that. In regards to the fact that there's some redevelopment, the asphalt material on site, will that be stored on site for reuse, or is that intended to be taken off site, or not known at this time?
You're talking about the existing parking lots? Yeah, I'm not sure what would be done with that material. I'm guessing it will be hauled off. I'm not sure if there's any way of mixing that with native material on site and using as general fill. There's not a lot of it, so I'm guessing it would be removed, but I don't have a definitive answer on that at this point.
That might be something the commission would look for clarity on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Boda. I would second that, and I would just be concerned about any of that being placed on the what side am I facing? On the western side near Wetland 2.
Yeah, that definitely wouldn't be used here because this needs to be a certain select fill material for the retaining wall behind the wall, so that would not be used in that area. Like I said, my guess is it would be removed from the site. If I'm not mistaken, this isn't really the greatest material. There's not a lot of it, so it's not a lot. It's probably pretty thin as well. I wouldn't imagine it's like a 4-foot pavement section or anything like that. Like I said, my guess is they probably stockpile it and then remove it from the site.
Commissioner Gokowski, predominantly the driveway, it's gravel, isn't it, at this time?
Yeah, I think there's a mix of gravel and pavement, correct?
Okay, but most of the pavement is on the side. I got to get my bearings right. On where the original Hilltop building was. That's where most of the pavement.
I think it's in this area as well, if I'm not mistaken. I don't recall off the top of my head, but I believe this parking lot here is, and this might be gravel in the back.
Yeah, I believe it's all gravel back there.
This is Commissioner Begeman. Oh, go ahead. Is somebody going to follow up on that?
No, I'm all set. I just remember that when we did the site walk, I remember the when we were walking up the driveway and everything, I don't remember seeing any pavement. The only pavement I remember is closer to the where the actual Hilltop Orchards building was, and that area there was pavement. I don't remember the other part of the driveway having any additional pavement around the houses themselves.
Right. I think you're correct.
Commissioner Begeman, this is a different topic. Do we know if there are any underground oil, gasoline tanks in the old property? And kind of new for me when there's a big demolition that's happening, what goes into checking the land for toxic substances?
I believe there was already a phase. It wasn't done by us. I can track it down, but I believe there was a phase 1 already done for the site, and those things were identified. I don't think there's anything of concern on site related to that, to my understanding.
Thank you.
Mr. Basserman, when you send in the revised plans, is it possible to have a sheet or a section of a sheet that would list the various inspection timeframes? Not so much the clock time, but after what activities would there be an inspection?
That, like I said, that's in the engineering report, and it's part of the maintenance plan. So that's going to be, so
it's not spread amongst the various sheets. It's on one sheet.
It's in the report. So there'll be an actual maintenance plan, and that maintenance plan will be included with our general permit. So that'll be part of that general permit that's kept at the construction trailer for the contractor. He has to maintain it on site during construction. But basically, it lays out the post-construction maintenance plan is just part of it, but there's also maintenance during construction as well. So that would all be part of the contract documents per se for what's being done out there.
Yeah, I would rather not go through a bunch of sheets to get specific data. Is it possible to line those up on a sheet so that it's easy for those that are doing the inspection in the staff, for instance, to identify that easily.
I'm not sure it would be easy to put that on the plans is my concern, because it's kind of like a checklist that the inspector goes through and says, and like documents they did the inspection. And I'm going to try and find this for you so I can show you essentially what this is that I'm talking about. But if you just bear with me a second, I can find that and share it with you.
This is Heather Grinnell, Wetlands Officer. Are you, Commissioner Basserman, are you asking about like at what stage in the construction process, or are you talking about a list of the items that get checked at each inspection?
I know that obviously as the different activities occur, there's an opportunity for inspections to make sure that there isn't anything that as a result of the construction gives us concern. So if there were identifying activities that said, once we've completed the wall. All right,
oh, you're talking about that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. This is post development maintenance here. So this isn't what you're talking about, but there, as part of the general permit, we haven't done a SWIP for this site yet. That's why this is so important. When I talked about the SWIP having a maintenance plan in there, there's actually the DOT has like, or DEP has a protocol of things that we have to have on site, like checking where petroleum stored and all sorts of things like that. And that's what the general permit is for, because it's for construction and dewatering wastewaters from construction activities. It's the whole point is to make sure things are being protected properly. And you're going through those. It tells you after a rain event of such and such of intensity, you have to go out there and inspect the site. It lays out all those things, and the contractor is required to follow the general permit, and that's made part of the contract documents. So they'll know they have to be out there after every rain event, checking all their erosion control measures. They'll have to have a third-party inspector come and make sure they're all operating properly. So all that is part of the general permit.
Thank you.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I have a couple of questions once commissioners are done asking questions.
Mr. Bassman, when do you expect the additional material to be available?
I've had most of the changes already incorporated into the plans, so I was waiting to see what came out of this meeting before having them finalized. So I could probably have it done early next week and have something back in by then.
Okay.
One of the things we had discussed, this is John Nuff, one of the things we had discussed with Amy when we met with her last week was when we will come back to the commission, whether it be on the February 26th agenda or March 12th. And obviously if we can get it in time so Jamie and everyone can review the revised plans, we'd love to be back on the 26th. But, you know, we also understand that you actually do need the time. But I think from what we're hearing, what Eric just said, we can get the revised plans in relatively quickly so that hopefully we can be back before you on the 26th.
And just for clarity, the amount of revisions of the plan aren't that significant. There's not a lot of changes, and it's a lot of the stuff around the pond and the erosion controls we talked about. There's some beefed up landscaping, some tweaks to the level spreader, but by and large, it's not significant changes.
Jamie, you had some follow-up?
Yeah, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I just want to touch base on a couple of things that I don't want to have come up later. So first and foremost, before I forget, sidewalks. I know the town engineer had made a comment about sidewalks along the front of the property. Is that something you're looking to include in the revisions to be submitted?
I don't believe that we're planning on adding sidewalks. You know, we had a meeting with the new director of land use, and the problem is I think there are sidewalks in front of the YMCA, but literally they go nowhere. I'm not sure where we connect to. I think there are parts of the road where there's a guardrail and they just can't continue beyond our property line. So I guess there's really no purpose to be served in adding sidewalks.
Okay. I would just comment that if that is something that you think is going to need to be added, that you do it at this point, given the proximity to the pond up by Route 1.
Okay.
And then the other things, if you can just quickly walk through your alternatives analysis, I think that that's important to have kind of on the record, and specifically kind of touching base also on your pre and post peak and peak flows and volumes. I think that that would be helpful for the commission.
Sure. I just have to get the pull that out. I hadn't pulled it up. I'm just trying to remember where I saved it on the server here for a second. 1 second. Alternatives. This should be it. Second. So this was our alternatives analysis. We submitted this a couple weeks ago. I forget the exact date. I know John clearly laid that out very well early on. But essentially, this alternatives analysis goes with our basic general basis of design and what we kind of planned for as part of why we chose to do what we did. And basically, a large part of this was explaining why the pond, we've explained why we think it's a better use for the pond and enhancing it and improving it. But we also wanted to show why there were other options that we didn't do. So basically, this plan kind of lays that out, and I'll just briefly summarize the reasons why these areas weren't used as potential other locations for retention. So there was area 1 back here, which is if we were going to do subsurface retention and have chambers underground or whatever, this would be the logical location in this back area because it's at the hydraulically closest point to the discharge, because obviously you want your site to drain to a location where it will go into retention and then discharge. But this location has very shallow rock, so we can't put it in this area. Rock is essentially almost at the elevation of the finished grade, if not like a couple inches below. So this area did not lend itself well at all, and we provided some boring analysis that was done out at the site to show that and document it. The other area was area 2. This was a potential area that we talked about, but the reality is this is going to be the fill behind the wall, and it's not ideal to put retention behind walls because then we put good draining material behind the wall. Like I said, we would never put the pavements back there because we need to have select fill in that location. Because we need to provide a geogrid and a good draining material behind the wall. So essentially, if we put a system back there, it would gravitate towards the wall, weeping through the wall, going to the footing drains for it. It's not a good scenario. The other area was out at area 3. This is a hydraulically remote location, so it's on the opposite side of where we want to discharge. We want to be discharging towards the river to follow the existing drainage patterns, whereas this location out here is on the far side of the site, and we wouldn't be able to get all these areas to drain back here and then back out to the front. So this would put the system significantly deep, as well as the fact the materials that were observed in this boring hole location showed a very dense soil, so it wouldn't lend itself very well for infiltration either. So those things all combined and considered, we felt that this pond was an ideal location. As we noted, it actually isn't the perfect spot to put retention and detention on site. So the pond location was perfect for accommodating our storm drainage approach. Plus, given the fact that this pond does not really have, it's a man-made pond, it had the invasives, all the things Matt went through earlier. So we think this is a significant improvement to the pond and providing a better solution, which is why we felt our alternatives analysis led us to where we came up with our approach and why we chose what we chose. In terms of the flows from the site, we are reducing flows all around as is shown in the engineering report. Given the fact that this is a wet pond and not a infiltration basin. There is no recharge of groundwater from a wet pond because we need to maintain that permanent pool of water. So there is an increase in volume that goes out to the site. But given the hydraulical location of this river in relation to the watershed, the volume increase is not something we're concerned with. But the peak flows that leave from this discharge will maintain the peak flows going to the river. I showed the watersheds before where we're trying to maintain the same drainage patterns for existing and proposed. So you can see there's a discharge that goes out to the river. an existing discharge that kind of comes out here and goes down and ultimately to the river. There's a watershed that goes out to the post to Route 1. All these locations and all these watersheds we try to maintain, and our engineer report documents that in each of the storm events from the 2 to the 100, we're matching peak flows to all of these locations. But there is a slight increase in volumes from the pond due to the fact it's not infiltrating groundwater.
Mr. Lindquist, this is Commissioner Bodo. While we're just looking at this watershed image, I'm a little, I can't see the bottom of the key at the moment, and I was a little confused about why. So if I look at this, the watershed 1B, and then where you have the discharge with the level spreader.
This up here?
Yeah. It looks like that is still in that lower watershed as opposed to being in what looks like watershed 1A. I'm just confused by that because it looks like
so
level
everything
spreader
in
is downhill, and so I don't know. My brain can't make sense of this image.
No, and this is I've been doing this for 20 something years, so it's just second nature to me at this point. So I trust me, I get it. These things can get confusing. So everything in 1B is what's going to the pond. So this yellow line here shows all the area from the building, the parking areas, everything that's going to the pond.
Okay.
The level spreader is what's, essentially once it goes to the pond, it then goes to 1A. So that's why it's 1A and 1B. They're essentially watershed 1. We're just showing what goes to the pond and what goes to the river, and they're both
the coloration is just about it. It's just ground cover. That's not
correct. Gray is
relation.
impervious pavements, light green is grasses, dark green is woods.
Okay. That makes more sense. Looking at that level spreader, and it looks like it's in a different, in the same watershed, but it's not. It's beyond that hatch line.
Everything in 1 goes to the river. It's just 1B goes to the pond first, 1A goes directly to the river. It's just kind of to differentiate that, because how we model it, we have to model what's going to the pond so we can do the controls, and then it discharges, and then we combine those to what's going to 1A. So that's how we have to model things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
This is Commissioner Koklowski, Mr. Lindquist. Currently, is the water runoff to the pond virtually almost the same as you're proposing it that it's going to be? Because I remember when we went to the pond, there's a severe slope going down to the pond.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you're just enhancing what is currently already there, or am I wrong in that assumption?
It's so you can see the area going to the pond currently isn't that significant. It's this area here, 1B. In the proposed, you'll see we're taking some of watershed 2, a little bit of 1A, some of watershed 4, some of watershed 3. So a lot more area is going to the pond now. So there'll be an increase in the amount of area going to the pond. So that's why we have the out control structure in there to mitigate the flows. We provided more storage in there to account for the greater volume going to the pond. So there's a larger area going to the pond now, or proposed, than there is currently going there. And like I said, if we weren't to use this pond, if we were to say, the pond isn't a good choice, the watershed going to the pond would only be essentially, this area here. And it would be very small, and it wouldn't be enough flow to maintain that pond or do anything. The pond would eventually dry up because we're cutting off any potential groundwater that's there, which we said is minimal anyways, but it's largely based on sheet flow, overland flow. So the pond would significantly be reduced in flow. So it makes a lot of sense to maintain what we're doing to the pond, provide the clean water with the water quality structures and all the pre-treatment we're doing, and then have this thing have a sustained flow going to it that will sustain the plant life that we want to put into the pond.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
This is Commissioner Papantonis. I have a question about the woods are going to be staying woods.
Mm-hmm.
There's no plan to turn that into grass or anything.
Our goal is to maintain everything as much out there as possible. We like the woods out there. We like the screening. We like the protection. Like I said, there will be some woods cleared right here, just because we need it for the footprint of the building. There'll be some clearing out front for the sight lines. There'll be some clearing along the side of the property line here to make place for the parking. But all these dark green areas are woods that are remaining, and we want to keep that way.
This is Commissioner Basserman. The dewatering area is where in relation to the pond?
The pond is the only thing that's the only thing we're dewatering. Like we have to empty the pond out to do the work. So that's where the dewatering would happen, is in the pond itself.
So you're able to work with the water in the pond?
No, that's the point, is to get the water out of the pond so we can.
Right. So where does it go when you're going out of the pond?
So that's what I mentioned that earlier. It was in the what I said was, and that's going to be enhanced when we do the revised plan set that you're going to be getting. So what's happening, if I can get to the right sheet here. So what we're going to eventually do, and I'll just kind of sketch it in here, there'll be a dewatering sump here, and essentially we'll have a discharge that's pumped out here. And what we're eventually going to do is have a row of hay bale check dams that go down the hill, that the pond will be pumped out to these check dams, and they'll have wings on them and stuff. So the water goes into it, gets, checked at the hay bale, overflows, it goes to the next one, gets checked there, goes to the next one. That allows sediment to come out, as it's because, this will be as clean as we can get it, but this is providing additional tertiary treatment for potential sediments that would be dewatered. But this is the approach to dewater the pond so that it can dry out, and we can do the sediment removal from the spoils and the phragmites or whatever are there, and stockpile them up on the side. So that's the approach we're planning on doing. And that was discussed with the third-party review engineer, and that was their advice, or that was part of the discussion and collaboration we had with them and their concerns in their letter that we addressed.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Boda for Mr. Regan. Can you just talk a little bit at the level spreader? Can you talk a little bit about the downhill soils? And do you know what kind of soil is there? How its composition, how sturdy it is?
I haven't done a in-depth soil analysis or a geotechnical analysis for where the level spreader is, if that's what you're asking me. I would assume that the soils at the location of the level spreader are suitable for that. Eric, if you could speak to that in regards to the load on the soils.
Yeah, so this is just an overall soils map of the area, and they're 87C, so we're talking about a loam on a steeper slope. So it's going to be a soil that's on a steeper slope, so it's in good shape. It's not just eroding down the hillside currently. So I don't see any concern with this loamy material being used for a level spreader, especially with the checks we're providing and the the controls and the detail I showed you of that level spreader. So I don't see a concern on that, but we didn't go out there and do any sampling of the soils or anything like that to verify anything other than that it's a suitable material on a slope that's not eroding and there's no concerns over there currently.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Boda. I think that even on the site walk, that was something that caught my attention. Is we do have some sections of town, not super far, where the soils are they're highly mobile, and the purpose of the level spreader is to slow the velocity, and the idea of putting additional plantings beyond that to prevent any initial creating of rills, etc. I think we've seen some pretty significant damage from small amounts of concentrated water. So if you would, Mr. Regan, just take a look at that soil and let us know a little bit more about it, that would be really helpful.
Yes, I would like to remind the commission that right now there's probably
Oh,
a foot
God,
of
that's
snow
right.
on the ground
Sorry.
and the ground is frozen.
Yeah.
So to do a soil analysis right now would be quite difficult, if not impossible.
Hmm.
I mean, we will be monitoring, as we said, as part of construction activities as these things are put in. If things do start to, erode or whatever, we're going to be repairing them. If the case requires, in some of these locations where I have had concerns similar to what you're expressing, which I don't necessarily have here, we have put reinforced netting on the soils to make sure they're held in place and make sure they're kept. I don't think our detail showed it, but if we could add to the detail if required, and that could be a note on the plans for construction documents that contractor to ensure after construction the soil is stable, blah blah blah, and if required, use netting to enhance slope stabilization or something along those lines.
Eric, this is Matt Regan from Time Bond. Sorry. Just to clarify, a stormwater pollution control plan will be prepared for this site, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so issues such as erosion on site will be addressed in the stormwater pollution control plan as required for the stormwater general permit issued by DEEP. And in there, soil erosion would be covered on ways to mitigate it, ways to prevent it, ways to address it.
Any other comments from the commission? All right, it's a little over an hour of discussion with the applicant and the peer review. I guess we can open up the meeting for public comment. I would prefer not to use the chat while this public meeting is going on. Everything needs to be on the record. So if you've been silent for that hour period, now's your opportunity to speak. And the first hand I see is Mr. Horn. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Commissioner Begeman. For the record, Bill Horn. A lot of people identify me with the land trust, but tonight I'm speaking on my own behalf. As Commissioner Boda said, there are a few places around town that have experienced extremely high erosion on steep slopes. So that's really where my concern is focusing. And so I'm going to address a little bit some concerns related to some of the larger design storms. And also, I mean, as I've listened, the fact that more water is going to be going onto the slope down to the river than is currently going there is part of my concern. The state has increased the design storm for the 100-year from 7.1 to 8.23. That's nice that they've increased it. That's the average. The 90% confidence interval is 11.4 inches. So now we're talking about an additional 4 to 5 inches over what had been previous. And so that's just with the current stormwater quality. In 1996, the Northeast Regional Climate Center found a value of 9.1 inches for the 100-year storm in the Northeast region of the United States. And most recently, there was a report out of the National Academies of Science and Engineering modernizing probable maximum precipitation estimates, in which they said that the current analysis of precipitation estimates based on previous experience just isn't working, and we need to find a way to project forward to accommodate for the changes that are occurring in terms of the frequency and size of storms. Given all of that, I certainly support the points in the peer review where they said to do what you could to provide additional velocity reduction and level spreader width. I have one suggestion that occurred to me as I was listening is that if you could incorporate deep-rooted grasses such as switchgrass in the areas downstream from the level spreader, that might add a little bit of protection against erosion as the water's coming out. And then in terms of the suggestion that emergency spillway should be incorporated into the retention basin design, that clearly is important. And it will be important to consider where that water is going to be directing, because that will only occur under times of very high flow with high precipitation events. And so it's going to be times of high stress on that steep slope. And we want to try to minimize the impact of those infrequent but very impactful events as much as possible. And that's I've submitted a text. I just sent it out by email to the commission office, and so that's a little more detailed. But that's the extent of my comments tonight. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Anybody else with a comment? I don't see any more hands. Jamie, help me out if you see something.
Amy, Frederick, I'm not sure who had their hand raised first, but I see Lauren Brown. We can just work our way down through the list. So Lauren Brown, if you would like to speak.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my name is Lauren Brown, and with our president, Julie Wagner, who's also here, I'm speaking on behalf of the Branford Land Trust with an interest in protecting the natural resources of our town. I wrote this afternoon. Some of my comments might change based on what I've heard, but not too much. And first, I just want to say I do echo Bill Horn's concerns about runoff. I have 3 words for the commission. Remember Gould Lane. For those of you who are new to the commission, I'm referring to a housing development which is now known as Stony Creek Crossing, going south on Lamartre Lane from Gould Lane. The site was a steep hill sloping into a wetland owned by the Land Trust. Before construction, the site was stripped bare, and due to a malfunctioning retention pond, failed silt fences, and other factors, sediment poured onto the Land Trust wetland in some places as deep as 2 feet. We could show you literally hundreds of photographs of sediment rushing down the Gould Lane into the storm drain, which went into the Land Trust property, sediment-laden water running down the wooded hillside of our property, etc. The construction proposed for this site, as you all saw, is on the top of a steep slope, which drains directly into the Branford River. Speaking as a layperson, I just don't want to see a repeat of Gould Lane. It's that simple. One could argue that there are differences between these 2 situations. The cleared area at Gould Lane was much larger and probably steeper, but an important difference here is that rather than the sediment ending up in a wetland where it could settle, as it did at Gould Lane, here it would be going directly into the Branford River. The Land Trust owns a 13-acre preserve about 1/3 of a mile downstream from this site. It's behind the K.S. Brewery. The Branford River runs right through it. We're concerned about sediment accumulating there, but our main worry is the possibility of direct deposition into the river behind this property. What I'm saying here is that we're most concerned about erosion and sediment control during construction. This is when the disaster was at Gould Lane. This is when the most soil is laid bare. We don't have the expertise to evaluate the applicant's plans, but we fervently ask you to make sure that they are adequate, because we all know that once erosion starts, it can't easily be stopped. I'm sorry, I forget your name, Eric Lindquist. Yes, you did mention measures you could take if some erosion started, and I'd be happy to see what those are. But then again, if you're getting into engineering, there's more disturbance, so it's just much easier to stop it in the beginning. The peer review letter used the phrase channelized flow. In my simple English, I would call that a gully. And we have all seen that once a gully gets started, it only grows as normal rainfall, let alone possible overflow from the detention pond, seeks its way to the lowest point and magnifies the erosion. So, and a related point is inspections. I've heard a lot of talk about the inspections, which is encouraging. And your staff is competent and dedicated, but also very busy. So we sincerely hope that they can be granted the necessary time and for frequent inspections and follow-up, especially during construction, because as I said before, better to stop the erosion before it starts. I have other comments that I'll give separately, but in the meantime, I just want to thank you all, the commissioners, for your consideration and for your service. Thank you.
Jamie Frederick in the
Go ahead, Jamie.
So real quick, I'm just going to make an announcement. Bill Horn mentioned that he submitted a document. I'm going to post a link in the Dropbox where I've uploaded that document and any other documents that we may receive. So that way it's available to the commissioners, public, and applicant, and it will be added to the record tomorrow during regular business hours. And with that said, I think given the reference to Julie Wagner and the Branford Land Trust, it would be appropriate to take comment from her next.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, should I go?
Please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Basserman. I just want to be clear as the president of the Land Trust that BLT does not oppose this project, but that we'd like to make several comments as the commission considers this project. As Lauren said, our comments are influenced by our experience with Gould Lane. And our interest is due to the obviously that the use of a regulated wetland for long-term stormwater and short-term sedimentation and erosion control is for in these highly erodible soils are relative to adjacent sensitive receptors, the forested wetland and the Branford River. First, we would like to suggest that the commission consider mitigation for the use of a wetland, albeit man-made, for stormwater. The applicant calls out a direct impact of over 17,000 square feet of wetlands, and we judge that the wetland impact can be balanced against the project purpose, but we wonder about the peer review that states that this project will not affect wetland function. Mitigation could be provided for wetland impacts beyond plantings. Permanently protected open space with a conservation restriction is an idea that BLT would favor. It doesn't have to be deeded to the land trust per se, but protected open space could be considered as a mitigation for impacts to the wetlands. Our second point is that in the construction sequence, which as Lauren Brown mentioned is of the most concern to us, the first action item is to make modifications to the pond to also use it for temporary stormwater management during construction. And given that this is technically a wetland, we're wondering what additional sediment and erosion controls could be considered during construction. This is our primary concern. A third point is that we noted no geotechnical boring data for the pond that would indicate groundwater and depth to bedrock. It's our understanding that the collection of boring data where best management practices are proposed is a new requirement, so we wanted to call that out. Another point, the pond will be transformed to a stormwater wetland that will have capacity to hold the 25-year storm before draining to the northeast. But given the increased frequency and intensity of storms, as Bill Horn was mentioning, we're wondering about the rationale for a 25-year storm and not less. And finally, the pond is called a stormwater pond in the drainage report, but also called a retention pond on the plan set. And to do this, approximately 1,688 yards of material will be removed from the pond to deepen the area to store the water quality volume. And we would hope to see a wildlife management plan prior to the work, specifically around turtle and finfish, because fish habitat was actually noted as a primary pond function in the documents that we reviewed. So we would like to suggest a plan for relocation and a wildlife management plan. And with that, I thank you for your time and attention and for your service to the town.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Ms. Wagner, do you have a reference for that boring change that you noted in your comments?
Not off the top of my head, but I can get it for you by tomorrow, certainly.
You said it was a new.
It's in the, it's a.
That would be helpful.
I believe it's a
Well, thank
revision
you.
to the stormwater manual.
Okay, appreciate it. Michael, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I do. Michael Leone, Lynch Krebs, Keefe and Arante. I represent Woodwinds, which is down the slope next to wetland number 2. Don't have too many comments here tonight. I have been working with Attorney Knopf with regards to the stormwater management. Obviously, we do have some concerns because we are downhill. We've had our own review of the runoff. We are relatively satisfied. We look forward to seeing the new planting plan that's going to be put in place with regards to that tree line there. We do know that some of that tree line is being cut into, so we're interested in seeing how far it's being cut into. But overall, we're in support of the plan right now. We just need to button up a few things. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands. Jamie, do you?
I do. Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. We've got Perry Maresca and Lauren Brown again. Give Perry Maresca a chance.
Why
Move
not?
on to... You're muted, Perry.
You're muted, Perry.
Hi, my name is Perry Maresca, Economic and Business Development Manager for the town of Branford. First off, the pond in question described as wetlands number 1 is a man-made pond that, to my recollection, was created less than 30 years ago. There's no real long-term historical significance to this pond that cannot be reconstructed to replicate what is there now. Recently, the Planning and Zoning Commission revised the landscape regulations to be much more stringent of what is required when a project is being considered for approval. For years, Planning and Zoning has required a professional lighting plan, confirming that the luminaires are dark sky rated, that the foot candles do not exceed a specific amount, and that there is no light trespass onto neighboring properties. So similarly, part of the new regulations requirement is to provide a professional landscape design that meets many specific desires, goals, and needs to assure respect and improvement of the environment. Most of the area where this proposed $70 million project is being constructed is on mostly flat, barren plot that decades ago was farmed a strawberry field. I know because I picked and ate many of those strawberries when I worked there. With the new regulations that have been implemented, this project will retain, enhance, or replace any significant trees. Rain gardens will be incorporated within the parking areas. Invasive and non-native inferior plants will be replaced and enhanced throughout the property. It will also be an opportunity to request specific types of plants, as mentioned, that will limit runoff to prevent erosion. The pond described as wetland number 3 was not a priority concern when the application was brought before the commission for the construction of the building and parking areas east and north of that pond. That building currently houses a Shoreline Y facility. The project being discussed tonight is farther away from pond number 3. In addition, all the drainage in the property is from that property is designed to flow away from these wetlands. The company that is proposing this project has similar facilities throughout the country with a very honorable reputation. They recently completed a state-of-the-art building in Danbury this inpatient care that they're planning here in Branford will not only be a boost to our tax base, but it will also bring high-paying jobs as they bring in well-qualified people to care for the patients. Part of their plan is to utilize much of the outside property as part of the rehabilitation efforts for their patients to recover from their operations and medical treatment. Many of their patients will be post-operation people that live along the shoreline from New Haven to New London. As Economic and Business Development Manager for the town of Branford, I respectfully ask this commission to consider and determine practical options that can allow this project to move forward. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Brown?
Yes, just a very quick question for Eric Lindquist about landscaping. I think downhill from the retention pond, you mentioned something about decorative grasses. And I'm just curious if you can tell me what those species are, or native or non-native.
Do you want me to respond after everyone's done, or how do you want to handle this?
It's up to the commissioner, up to the chair.
Why don't we deal with it right now?
Yeah, so currently they're not shown in the plans. What I was saying is I asked my landscape architect to review that, and I heard the comments that your land trust has been making, and I've been nodding along with you guys, and those are obviously areas of concerns for myself as well. And I can go into more detail on some of this stuff, but the idea of switchgrass I wrote down to make sure that's one of the options that my landscape architect is reviewing. But I threw that out there as he's going to start making those corrections after this meeting. So I'm going to be giving him this feedback and asking him to facilitate these comments. But we have already discussed putting some level of grass or a robust landscaping as it goes down from the level spreader to help prevent the items that we're talking about.
Okay, because you said decorative grasses, and when people think decorative grasses, they often think of miscanthus, which is not native and has the potential to be invasive. And
that's engineering talk from an engineer. That's not landscape architect talk.
Right. Okay.
And I guess this Commissioner Basham, I guess you'll have a chance to review that with the revised material at the next meeting.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. Ms. Gwinnell?
Hi. Heather Grinnell, but speaking as a resident, not as a part of the town staff. I noticed you mentioned something about the sidewalk in front, and I frequently drive by the Y, which also has a sidewalk, but they also have a bus stop. And there's many, many times during the day that I drive by, especially during normal commuting hours, where there's somebody waiting to either get picked up or dropped off. And your facility may also want to consider the sidewalk from the perspective that some of your employees may be using the public transportation system, and that sidewalk really facilitates that rather than walking along the street. Don't think it necessarily has to do with wetlands, but it's something to consider.
Anybody else?
Real quick, I'd say at this time, if there's anyone that's not sure how to raise their hand that wanted to talk, if you can unmute and just let us know at this time.
Okay. It is now little less than the 2-hour time frame. I think at this point, given the fact that there's additional material that needs to get provided, sounds like it's going to be provided in expedited kind of time frame. I'm hopeful that we can review all the outstanding material at the next meeting, which is scheduled for February 26th. And unless there is an objection or comment at this point, I'd like to continue the public hearing until February 26th, when we'll reconvene and discuss in Wetland 25-6.
I think as part of determining when we're continuing this too, I would like to ask the peer review. If A, they're available February 26th, and B, if they think that they would be able to provide follow-up comments for that within that time frame.
Kyle Albert from CLA. Yes, I'm available for the next meeting date. Bob, I think, had mentioned he was too. Are you, Bob?
Yes, I am available for the next meeting date as well and could certainly respond to the revised plans.
All right.
And further comment, appreciate the applicant getting those materials in, keep this thing moving along. I know it's in your best interest as well as ours.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for all your time.
Okay. Yep. We'll move on to BRI number 25, Penna 1, which is in the open gov portal, Chestnut Street Bridge, the replacement of the Chestnut Street Bridge over the Branford supply pond. And this is a continuation of public hearing that we had started on January 22nd of this year. And I guess there's been additional material provided since that meeting. Jamie, unless you have comment, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
JB Frederick and the wetland agent. So yeah, we'll start off with the applicant's presentation, and then I think I'll have a comment.
Okay.
Okay.
Who do we have for Chestnut Street?
Yep. Good evening, Commission. My name is Keegan Elder.
Good evening.
I am the civil engineer hired by the town of Branford to do the design for the replacement of the Chestnut Street Bridge. We've met and presented the project on a few occasions prior to this, and subsequent to our December 11th public hearing, we were requested to provide some more information, a series of questions. So I'll give a brief overview of the project again for anyone new or anyone to refresh their memories, and then I will go over the questions presented to us in the town and the responses and how those are incorporated into the project documents. So
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Elder. Real quick, I'm just realizing I think we have at least one commissioner that was not present for a previous public hearing. So I would just ask at this point, if you were not present at the November and or December meeting, if you can state whether you've reviewed the recording and feel that you're eligible to participate, or if you're recusing yourself from this item, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Jamie. This is Commissioner Mirsky. For the record, I have reviewed recordings from November 13th and December 11th, and I feel I am sufficiently available and ready to participate if necessary.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Armstrong. I have also reviewed the recordings from the meeting that I missed, and I feel I am able to listen to this and pass judgment as well. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Keegan.
Okay, thank you. So this project involves replacing the existing failing structure over Chestnut Hill between the Branford supply ponds. On your screen is an overview of the bridge that is going to replace the structure that's there. Roughly a 16-foot span structure, which is wider than the existing structure, creating more watercourse and more habitat in the channel. In conjunction with the bridge work, there'll be a concrete sidewalk installed on the northerly side of the road, and along both northerly and southerly sides of the road, retaining walls to maintain the roadway safely in that area as well. The road will consist of bituminous concrete sidewalk. We have concrete parapets and the culvert that the water is going to convey through. For the work and the sequence of the work, we intend to close the road to construction. As part of the bridge work, there will be some roadway reconstruction approaching the bridge from the west and from the east, reconstruction of the driveways. To perform the work, we'll be installing temporary cofferdams and turbidity control curtains to protect the construction area and make sure that we maintain flow and clean flow throughout the project. This project has been submitted to the DOT and DEP for their review. Fisheries, NDDB, and Army Corps and DEP have chimed in. The next step in this process, after local approval, is to submit our final permit to the Army Corps before moving forward to construction. So back to the sequence of work. Once we get out to the site, the road will be closed to traffic. Construction is anticipated to take roughly 8 months of working time. Given our sort of delayed schedule in getting started in this spring, there's a potential that it could start in the summer and go into next summer with some winter shutdown periods involved, depending on how bad the next winter is going to be. Fisheries notes and comments have been incorporated in the plans. Time of year restrictions for various species, cofferdam types included. We have addressed their comments as well. And with that, I'll sort of branch over to some of the questions we received on the project itself and how we responded to those questions. One of the first questions, comment 1, was to revise the site plan to include all time of year restrictions. These are noted on sheet 3 and other sheets throughout the plans, where we have various time of year restrictions for various species of when the contractor is allowed to do work, when in-water work will be allowed. Those are all included in the plan sheet, not just the permit, not just the specifications, which was what we previously had. Add timing for turbidity control curtains and mitigation to the site plan. We included timing for the turbidity control curtains on page 13. The DEP and Army Corps, they don't treat the turbidity control curtain installation similar to how they treat cofferdams, in that you're allowed to install the turbidity control curtains throughout the project and remove them as such, whereas cofferdam installation is restricted through certain periods. So as far as turbidity control curtains go, they can be installed throughout the duration of construction, which we anticipate to begin sometime in June and proceed for up to a year, maybe 8 months from that point into next year. I'll touch base more on the mitigation once we start reviewing the mitigation plans further down in the comments. I'll skip over to number 4 of the comments, which get into the details of the mitigation plan. We hired a architect, Calcutt Associates, to review the project and review mitigation requirements. They provided a letter which was included in your package. That is new information. And comment number 1 talks about how mitigation will be implemented in the field. And the response to that is in line with number 1 on that letter. It basically goes into site plan preparation, how the various areas of the site will be treated. I'll skip over to the plan sheet to make this a little clearer as I talk through it. So we have different areas of impact along the edge of the road, north and south. We have areas where we're creating, installing concrete walls, and then we have wetland mitigation and enhancement further to the north, sort of off-site to help offset the amount of impacts we have on the project. So the response goes into how areas along the wall should be excavated and treated. These areas generally will be limited to hand disturbance. Those are these areas around here. Hand tools will be used to do that work. Areas along the embankment and roadway parking lot, those are these areas. Those areas can be treated with or worked on with mechanical equipment, as long as the equipment remains on the road. The wetland enhancement and mitigation area further back, the recommendation is no heavy vehicles should be used in this area, and limit disturbance to that area as much as possible in doing any clearing. So those notes are included in our mitigation plan and in the mitigation letter with respect to comment number 4. Vegetation management, it goes into each of these areas as well as to how to treat those areas with vegetation management. And then the upland buffer protection area, effective implementation methods used to rehabilitate in these areas, and how signage and field workers will be in these areas to protect from deer in the future and things of that nature. So that mitigation plan goes into very in-depth addressing how it's implemented in the field. Comment number 5, invasive species management and monitoring. So we provided more details on that. Comment number 5 refers to number 2 on the landscape architect, Talcott and Associates document. It calls for inspection, allow municipal agents to inspect the land throughout the life of the permit for ongoing compliance. It calls for annual inspection for invasive management and monitoring. And it also calls for a typical monitoring period that lasts up to 5 years. Regular field assessments of the hydrology, soil conditions, and plant survival rates, and specific ecological performance standards. Additional removal control activities may be necessary, but this goes into depth to respond to that question. Comment number 7. Sorry, I skipped one. Comment number 6. Narrative sequence should be on the site plans. Go back to page 3 of the site plans. We added a sequence of construction, planting sequence notes are all included in the site plans, going through the steps that I started talking about earlier, when work is going to get done, how the work is going to get done, and the timing of most of the construction activities are presented directly on the plans for the commission. Comment number 8 requested more information on the particulate removal of the turbidity control curtains, and to talk in depth a little bit about the type of material and so forth. The turbidity control curtain type for this type of project will be a type 3 turbidity control curtain. That curtain is a fabric material, reinforced fabric material, and it limits the sediment infiltration to less than 5 NTUS. That's nephometric turbidity units. This is a heavy-duty type system designed for activities in rivers and ponds where there is potential for significant flow and movement of water, which is what we have. Type 1 or type 2 of turbidity control curtain, a more light duty. This heavy duty curtain is ideal for these conditions. And those curtains were added to the plans as requested. And give me a second. Yeah. On sheet 13, we show the turbidity control curtain installation alongside the temporary cofferdams. notes for the turbidity control curtain. We talk about the particulate removal. We talk about the duration of the installation, or how long the turbidity control curtains are going to be in place while the work is being done. Moving on to comment number 9. Timing of when mitigation will be completed. When will mitigation occur relative to the rest of the project? That is also answered in the Talcott and Associates letter number 3 of that letter. All plantings shall be performed with the allowable growing period. This is also in the plans as well, but was confirmed and substantiated in this letter. Given durations when planting can occur, invasive species control should take place as soon as the project is mobilized, and these activities could take longer. And no planting should take place until invasives are controlled in the replanting areas and preparation is complete. That ties into one of the other questions later on, and we'll expand on that when we get there. Comment number 10, general construction sequence for mitigation. That goes into number 4. I try to keep these in sequence with the letter. Pre-construction talks about how we maintain and monitor. We talk about the pre-construction meeting. We also talk about the growing season again. And then all mitigation work to be overseen by a certified landscape contractor who has experience with wetland enhancements, wetland enhancement projects. So it goes into the site preparation, the earthwork and grading requirements, material handling and excavation, and then final grading and areas to match what's currently in place. It further talks about stabilization and planting, soil amendments, how plantings are to be implemented, and invasive species management again revisits that. Post-construction monitoring, it gets into details on how that should be done, including hiring an on-site environmental monitor to oversee construction, make sure it adheres to the permit. It talks about the long-term management, conducting periodical monitoring to verify successful establishment of the wetlands function, survival rates of the native plants, and so forth. And then inspections throughout, allowing municipal agents to inspect land throughout the life of the permit to ensure ongoing compliance. The town will have its representative on site doing routine daily inspections of the bridge work, but in addition to that, landscape architect or licensed a person with similar type of wetland enhancement work will be on site for activities related to that. Comment 10. Comment number 11, similar comment, whether qualified individual will oversee the mitigation work. Yes, certified soil sand landscape architect will be on site. Those notes are in the plans. Sheet number 9, and also in the mitigation letter that would be included as part of the contract documents. Number 11, extent of activity. That ties into number 5 of the mitigation letter. It talks about all plantings, mitigation, and management operations shall be confined to the area shown on the plans. And the area is shown approximately 3,500 square feet. Information provided by us to the landscape architect. We're increasing the waterway opening, installation of wetland seed mix in certain disturbed areas, enhancing the wetlands in the gravel pit area that we talked about. Also plantings along the edge of the road, provide shrubs and small trees where possible along the slopes and the edge of the ponds. The wetland soil scientists worked with the landscape architect to confirm these locations and finalize these plans that we have. Comment 13, which was received after the meeting. Will native soils remain, or is the plan to excavate soil median through the Phragmites rhizome layer, i.e., how much disturbance will there be in this area? The soil scientist recommends that we keep disturbance to a minimum in this area. Invasive plants exploit disturbed areas and will take over if allowed to. If minor fills are needed, we will allow that, topsoil and so forth. But for the purpose of that comment and question, we will be limiting the disturbance in that area and not disturbing any more than needs to be disturbed to get the work done. Comment number 14. That ties into number 7 on the landscape architect's letter. Any particular concerns that should be addressed when planting and a stand of Phragmites to ensure plant survival? If Phragmites will be treated through herbicide, are there any timing concerns for plantings? The soil scientists investigated this and gave a couple of responses. Wait for control. This often takes 3 to 5 years of herbicide application. That would be included in the contract documents. So this work has to be done before any plantings are installed to ensure the survivability of those plants. And integrated management, late summer herbicide applications by a professional, a licensed professional, winter mowing or mulching of dead stumps to open the marsh deck, and then annual monitoring and retreatment of problem areas. So those are all going to be included as part of this project in one way or the other, to be performed by either the bridge contractor and or the town and its forces, including hiring a landscape architect as we extend through the project life. One more comment that we received beyond those 2 sets of comments was in regards to the functions and values, comment number 15. The functions and values, I guess I'll read it out to make it clear for everyone. Did the applicant address, or was the question sent to the applicant about discussing the change in values and functions of the wetlands from the earthen shoreline with vegetation to a water cement shoreline? The applicant is counting the earthen areas taken out as part of the mitigation area for invasive removal, and the new area of water abutting the new concrete walls is being counted as increased wetlands. I don't know if the wetland scientists can weigh in on the change in terms of the change in wetlands functions and values this presents, or this represents, sorry, and whether the proposed additional plantings along the shoreline make up for the removal of the water earthen shoreline that previously existed. So our soil scientists, SSES, provided soils report dated January 19th, 2024. That soils report describes the wetlands functions and values. The existing conditions were described in this area. And basically, the response is that the wetlands on either side of Chestnut Street over the Branford supply ponds are very narrow, sloping, and contain areas of dense vegetation growth, including some invasive species. The primary function provided by the wetlands and watercourse pond systems include groundwater discharge, fish habitat, flood flow alteration, sediment and nutrient retention and removal, shoreline stabilization, wildlife habitat, recreational educational value, uniqueness, aesthetics, and potential habitat for listed species. These primary functions will still be provided by the wetland pond supply following construction, even though a small area of wetlands will be eliminated by the permanent impacts. The disturbed areas along the southern edge of the pond will be restored with plantings. In addition, there will be enhancement to the functions and values, including fish habitat, the wider bridge opening that I mentioned earlier, and recreation, improved accessibility, as well as improvements to public safety, the road and sidewalk meeting standards that are currently don't exist, and invasive plant species removal, preventing further spread downstream. So that was comment number 15 regarding the functions and values of the existing versus what's going to be there in the future when the work is completed. And there was one more question regarding the need for the project. I believe that was addressed in the alternative review that I presented, and also addressed by the town first selectman and town engineer for the purpose and need of the project. So with that, I will turn it over to any questions, comments.
Jamie, you had some comments on the revised material? Or do you want to go direct to the staff report and deal with it in that context?
Jamie Frederick and then Wetland Agent. I'm a little confused because it looks like somebody has their hand raised, but I'm not seeing anyone with their hand raised.
Oh, I see a hand raised with Michael. That's the only one I see.
This is Commissioner Begamon. I have some questions.
Yeah, I think commissioner questions are appropriate, and then I'll follow up if my question doesn't come up.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Begamon. Thank you, Mr. Elder. Couple of typos I noticed when looking at these things. There are many pages that say notes, and the fourth one is about when the asphalt is taken out, it's supposed to be removed from the, and the word site is missing. It says removed from the as such and such is going on. And I can tell you what pages they're on because they're on every time you have that section that says notes, that word site is missing. The second thing that might be a typo is on page 15, you refer to the soil and erosion control and you refer to the 2002 state version, but that's been updated to 2024. So I wanted to see if you meant 2002 or if you meant 2024. Wait, you're on mute.
Sorry, I do Zoom meetings all the time and I keep forgetting that. The project started in 2023 before that came out, but by code, we will update that.
That's great.
Yep.
Commissioner Begamon again. Under the suggested construction sequence number 12, you talk about a guide rail, but I don't remember us talking about a guide rail.
Yes, so there's guide rail being installed on all four corners of the bridge. That's a Connecticut DOT standard to protect the blunt ends of all four corners of the bridge. Yes.
Commissioner Begamon, maybe we did talk about that. Maybe because it wasn't called a guardrail or something. Okay, so the guardrails, that's going at the ends where there will be new plantings also.
Correct.
Okay. And then the last question is, when it's just a question of sequence of when they're cutting down the vegetation that is on both sides of Chestnut Street where it goes over the ponds. It says that it can be done mechanically, and it said it has to be done before construction starts. And I'm just thinking about erosion control, and when are the cofferdams and the silt curtains going in? That's not turbidity curtains going in relation to cutting trees on the bank, because once they're cut, there could be erosion.
Yeah, so the erosion and sedimentation controls have to go in first before they start cutting. The cofferdams cannot be installed until they do cut and they can reach over those areas to put the cofferdams in. and cofferdams underneath the bridge and within the existing bridge cannot be installed until they remove the top deck of the bridge, because those cofferdams are going to be driven sheets and or systems to keep that area watertight. So as far as sequence goes, erosion and sedimentation controls ENS fence, silt fence will be installed first. They'll do cutting. They'll also remove the deck. Then they'll install the cofferdams in the remaining portions to really control curtains, and then continue construction beyond that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything, this is Commissioner Basserman. Anything else from Mr. Elder? Is it time to post that staff report, Jamie?
If there's no other comments or questions from commissioners. Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. This is a town project, so no application fee. We are at the end of our time clock. This is where we got our extensions for closing the public hearing. So the public hearing really can't be continued past tonight unless you guys really want to have a special meeting. Permanent impacts, they're estimating 516 square feet with 324 feet being filled and 192 being shaded by the bridge deck. And then temporary of 2,014 square feet with the associated grading and activities. We did receive a soils report. We received revised plans. This is actually before we received today's plans. So we're up to version 6 and exhibit number. I'd have to go to the exhibit list. I can look that up if necessary. We had public hearing notices, erosion controls, by and large consist of silt fence, cofferdams, settling basins for dewatering, the turbidity curtain. We have received some additional details on that turbidity curtain, and a revised note to indicate no stockpiling of excavated materials on site. They are generally not proposing any stormwater changes or improvements, and are generally looking to mimic existing conditions with minor modifications relative to the walls of the new bridge. Restoration plan is required for regulation 7.9. Regulations say 2-to-1 mitigation, cannot be reduced to less than 1-to-1 mitigation. So they are requesting a reduction. They're proposing 1.4-to-1 mitigation, to kind of, I did the ratio also based on the permanent impacts, which puts them at 6.8-to-1. And I also called out that specifically the wetland gain is 532 and loss is 516, so it complies with the no net loss policy that the commission has. Maintenance and monitoring plan. We have not only the wetland report, but we have a follow-up report from Jennifer Bino regarding the proposed mitigation and review of that. We also have supplemental information that was added to the plans in regards to some of the comments raised by commissioners and staff, and also a review letter from Talcott and Associates, site planners and landscape architects. So the comment I had that I wanted to mention is this review letter indicates that specifically, well, we're interpreting it anyways, to specifically apply to the Phragmites area. It they're saying that this area should not be planted until it's been managed for invasives. So that means it wouldn't be planted for 3 to 5 years, which is a little bit different than what the commission has typically seen. But I think part of the reason why I was asking how that was going to happen is because planting in a stand of Phragmites without excavating that soil is also something the commission hasn't typically seen. And I was questioning how that would be feasible. And managing it for, a slightly extended period of time before planting seems reasonable to me. I probably would come up with some modified language to our standard language on the monitoring with that in mind. But I just wanted to point that out real quick. And then prudent and feasible alternative analysis, we have the narrative Exhibit 2 that outlines the considerations that were put forth and refuted as neither prudent nor feasible. And then also we have the email from the town engineer responding to the need to replace the bridge. So I did not come up with conditions for consideration. I usually don't do that on a public hearing until the commission has closed the public hearing and started the deliberation process, and I kind of have a direction to take things in. I do also want to just jump back and note that the commission did make a determination that this activity may have a significant impact. For regulation 10.3, in the case of an application which received a public hearing pursuant to a finding by the agency that the proposed activity may have a significant impact on wetlands or watercourses, a permit shall not be issued unless the agency finds on the basis of the record that a feasible and prudent alternative to the proposed activity does not exist. In making this finding, the commission shall consider the facts and circumstances set forth in subsection 10.2 of this section. This finding and the reasons therefore shall be stated on the record in writing. So any questions or comments from commissioners?
I guess I'll stick my chin out. This is Commissioner Basserman. Given the fact that this, I guess, is before us because of its safety concerns, I guess I'm hard pressed to think of what an alternative safety solution would be. The manner, I guess, in which the construction activity took place certainly has some variation to it. But the concept of needing to replace the bridge, I guess I'm not seeing an alternative. So where do you draw the line on feasible and prudent with that background?
Well, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I mean, certainly there's the consideration that there's an existing bridge. The existing traffic patterns, the access to the open space that it, helps provide. And then also the town engineer brought up in his letter that if they were to discontinue the bridge, then what does that look like they're getting state funding to, my understanding is they're getting state funding to replace the bridge due to its safety, the condition of the bridge. I don't know that they would get state funding to remove the bridge. And also I don't know what impacts that would have. Also, if they were to discontinue that through drive, then they would have to create a termini that would allow for maneuvering of not just regular vehicles, but emergency vehicles at either end, which could result in impacts as well. So.
But this is Commissioner Bassman again, but does the feasible and prudent, isolate itself to how we protect the watercourse and the wetland plants that are part of this project as opposed to what we typically find in an application of is location of the building or how the stormwater is treated. Largely, this gets down to how we protect things going forward with where they're at today.
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. I mean, I think that's part of the consideration, again, given the fact that it's an existing bridge. So, I mean, other points that were raised were the fact that the width is the minimum width required for safety and DOT standards. DOT standards require a sidewalk. Arguably, that sidewalk provides access for fishing and things like that. I mean, I think you're right. I think the considerations of how they're doing it are definitely significant in this project. And then I think that there's kind of just a bunch of other questions about, again, if you were to kind of not replace the bridge, what that might look like.
This is Commissioner. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, this is Commissioner Boda. I think based on the minimum requirement, based on the town engineer's findings, this is the purpose of the prudent and feasible alternative is to ensure that there's not another manner forward that would have less or no environmental impacts to the wetland or watercourses. And what we see is that there is not an opportunity for another plan that would have less or no environmental impacts, and therefore this would be the most appropriate process, application, permit.
Me, Frederick, and the wetland agent, I would agree with that.
So is our function tonight, at this point, it seems like the goal is to be able to close the public hearing, so that, and then I guess the second part is the goal that Jamie, you go back and you have that kind of checklist so that when we make our final decision, because we can do that outside of the public hearing, that's the target, versus that tonight we are crafting a final, we're closing the hearing and making a decision. I would go for the former.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So the commission, I would argue, needs to close the public hearing tonight. So any questions, information the commission thinks you need, try and get that addressed this evening. Once the public hearing is closed, the commission has 35 days to deliberate. I think given the hour and the fact that we have one more item on our agenda, and also consistent with past practice, it would make sense to close the public hearing. Perhaps if you have any deliberation comments to give me a direction, you could do that, and then we would continue deliberations to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is February 26th.
I do see a hand raised. I think it's Michael. Michael, did you have comment on the Chestnut Street Bridge project?
His hand is not up for me.
Yeah, my hand wasn't up, so.
I'm looking. Oh, sorry about that.
No, sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Do we have any additional questions from the commission or comments before we close the public hearing?
No.
We need a motion hearing, Jamie?
I'm sorry?
Nope. All right, since there are no further questions, I said, do we need a vote on the closing of the hearing or not? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, let's make them. I don't think so. We don't need a vote. General consensus is fine.
Great. Is there anybody that doesn't want to close the hearing tonight? All right, hearing silence, the hearing is closed. So BR
Any,
IW 25-1001, public hearing on the Chestnut Street Bridge, replacement of the bridge over the Branford Supply Pond. The public hearing is closed, and hopefully we can get a decision at our next regularly scheduled meeting, which would be February 26th.
any particular request or guidance on deliberation type document beyond what was kind of already discussed earlier? Alright.
I would just say to Mr. Elder, thank you for enumerating everything. And the way that you did it was thorough, and that's very helpful.
Easy to follow. Yeah, I needed that for my own sanity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing for 5 and 6. We have enforcement activities, cease and correct 25-1201, 2333 School Ground Road, removal of vegetation adjacent to the water course, the filling and grading within the upland review area. This is a continuation of the show cause hearing that we had back in December, on December 11th. Did we get additional material on this item, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent we have. So we received a preliminary findings report from REMA, and we also received a letter addressing the material that was brought on site from Jackson Environmental LLC. I can screen share those and any other of the materials. It looks like we have a couple people present for this item, so I don't know if we want to let them present their response.
That
Or if
sounds
the
like a
commission
plan.
wants a refresher on.
This is Commissioner Boda. I'm gonna sign off now. Good night.
Good night. Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we have, is it William Jackson that can give us an update?
Well, first it's Michael Leone for the respondent, 2333 School Ground Road LLC, commonly known as Woodwinds. Yes, we do have two experts here with us tonight. We have Mr. George Logan, a professional wetland soil scientist and ecologist, as well as Mr. Jackson, the registered soil scientist. Mr. Jackson was the one that reviewed the material that had been put on site that you had requested to be reviewed, and then Mr. Logan did his wetland review. So I don't know who you would like to hear from first.
Your choice.
Let's start with Mr. Logan, and then we can move on to Mr. Jackson.
Just to make sure, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I had to change my camera. My nice camera was not working. George Logan for the record, REMA Ecological Services. So my preliminary findings are pretty quick. I was out at the site back in December 8th. And what I noticed, of course, is that there is a slope that goes down, that is a constructed slope down towards what I'm calling, based on the USGS, the Branford Notch Hill Brook, and apparently it's also known as the Branford River. So based on what I was hearing earlier. And what I found was that within the Eversource right-of-way, there has obviously been some historic disturbance there. I guess maintenance more, Eversource will call it more maintenance than disturbance. And so there's a little bit of history there that I'm not 100% sure of because it goes back a few years. But what I did notice was that there is a isolated wetland. And I don't know if Jamie has those pictures or if I should share myself.
Either works. I've got it pulled up if you will.
Okay, so if you want to go to those, so that's the site. So that little block is the area that I looked at primarily. And then if you follow, you'll see some pictures. So the next one, yeah, let's do the next one. So what this shows you, obviously, this is not exactly from an aerial photograph perspective what's out there now because the trees have been removed by Eversource as part of their maintenance. But that dash line that you see there that says toe of slope is my rendition based on my little handheld GPS as to where the slope, bottom of the slope, the toe of the slope is. And then you can see two other arrows that show you that the said isolated wetland, and we'll call it maybe about 7,000 square feet or something like that. That's also the delineated wetland. It's not delineated in the fact that you don't have flags out there except for those two flags that are right up against the toe of the slope. So what it tells you is the right of the toe of the slope, there is a wetland, poorly drained soil. The characteristics of the soils are interesting. There's obvious disturbance, sort of a mixing that's happened there. So you can see some fill, and it's mixed in with what I would call alluvial material that probably was transported from somewhere in the vicinity there. So it's a mix. So it's an aquant, I guess. It's a disturbed soil surface and horizon. And what I also saw was that there is a pipe that, if you go down to the area, the photographs that I've provided, I don't know if you can see them, you can get in a little closer, but there's a pipe there, right? That pipe is an extension of a pipe that used to come to this area, and that was extended a little bit, and then the slope was constituted on top of it. So that's a historic area where water used to come to from the site, including some of the impervious surfaces, including there's a drainage area on the other side. You don't see that. So what I noticed was that there is definitely moisture there, and there was some free water down to about 12 inches. And there's no connection of this isolated wetland with the perennial watercourse. So it was very difficult for me to dig into the slope, and plus I didn't want to because I didn't want to destabilize it by digging holes around. But what I did is I looked at some historic aerial photographs. I looked at some topo that's provided by our state, the GIS. You have both the 2016 and also the 2023 LIDAR, which is pretty accurate in my estimation from my experience, what I found. And so I looked at the pre-existing, if you will, topography, and I can't really tell how much far below the slope or the fill the wetland extends. I would guess probably not more than 15 or 20 feet, something in the order of that based on the topography. But again, I'm not about to take the slope down, so I can figure that out. So one of the things that I said in my report was that obviously we have a FEMA floodplain and a floodway, and the floodplain comes into this general area, and it's determined by an elevation, which I also put in my report. I think it was 37.5, and the 27.5, sort of an average between the two cross sections that you have there. And I guess that's not necessarily something that this commission regulates, but I know it's something that the town might want to have answers about. And of course, what I recommended was that the only way to figure that out is for, and I put what the datums were so that a surveyor could come out. We could use the same datums and kind of figure out exactly if there's been any encroachment within the FEMA floodplain. And my guess, again, based on what I've seen, is that there might be some, but it's minimal. But as not having a survey, I really can't tell that. Now, I've been discussing this with my client, and unfortunately, and I know this for my own projects, getting a surveyor out to this property might be by Christmas. So we're going to have to do a little better. There were several surveyors that basically said either we can do it or it's months and many months from now, 8 weeks, 3 or 4 months that they could touch it. So we're looking at some other surveyors to see if that's something that we can do more for the floodplain possible encroachment than for the wetland. Because my view here is that we have an isolated wetland. It has been vegetation has been cut. in part based on whatever source has done there. There's a 2 to 3 or 4 inch mulch layer on it, which is good and bad at the same time. It'll keep the invasives down for a little bit. And we have an opportunity to come up with a enhancement, restoration, and mitigation plan for this wetland. And let's assume that, and again, this is sort of an estimation, that we have, say, 400 or 500 square feet of wetland disturbance that's sitting right now under the slope, which is stable. We could expand this wetland along its margins and also enhance it through a planting. So that would be an easy job. Basically, you would after I delineate it, so we know where obviously the limits of the wetland are. You can go past the limits of the wetland on those three sides, not towards the slope. Extend it by, say, 15 feet, maybe 20. Remove some of the soil, replace some good topsoil. Not use what's there now because I'm sure it's highly infested. And then do a very aggressive planting plan, which will do a couple of things. One, it will obviously restore, enhance, and mitigate the potential disturbance that's under the fill slope. And also sort of push back invasive infestation, which will probably happen pretty quickly if we do nothing. If you look across the way, you can see the primary culprits in this area is mugwort and Japanese knotweed. And I'm sure there's others if I look more closely. So that's kind of where we're at. I was hoping that we would have gotten a commitment for a surveyor to come out here once the snow cap is gone and get us a little bit of a survey and a little bit of a map so we know exactly where things are. But it doesn't look promising at this point, but we can certainly keep trying and maybe have an answer at your next meeting, which I won't be able to attend because I'm supposed to be in Wilton, but maybe we can figure something out. That's kind of what I have for you for now. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to respond.
This Commissioner Basserman, is the hesitancy an issue of resources or not a job that they feel interested in?
Good question. I'm not sure. So if Tony's online, Mr. Tony Supa, he could probably answer because he's the one who's had the communications.
I can also answer it as well. And if Mr. Supa wants to chime in, that's fine as well. He's actually been getting estimates between one surveyor turned him down, and then he's been getting estimates between 14 and 20 weeks. It's not about resources. It's just they can't get out there. Obviously, a 14 to 20 week timeline is not what we wanted to hear or you folks want to hear. But we've been doing our best for since, this was requested to find one, and we just can't find one. We were given a list of a few more surveyors today from various portions of the state by, I believe it was Mr. Logan's office or it was Mr. Jackson's office. But right now we're doing our best and we're still contacting one. We just don't have somebody on hand to do it.
Is a large part of that then the fact that nobody out there is able to do any work because of the snow cover and therefore everything gets pushed down the road?
I'm guessing that's part of it, but I've also, and this is, just what I've heard through the grapevine in recency is that a lot of these folks are retiring and they're not being replaced fast enough with newer surveyors.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. But yes, I don't think the snowpack right now is helping.
Okay.
That should be gone about, 3 weeks if we're lucky?
Yeah, let's hope.
Your words to God's mouth.
Yes, please. I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs. No, I'm not. I have plenty of work. Thanks.
This is Commissioner Begeman, unless somebody has another question. No. So I'm not quite sure I understood that the wetland the wetland has been filled in for 15 feet. You had said that the wetland extends underneath that quote slope, and I'm not sure if you're referring to the slope of the stuff that's been put on by
Right.
woodwinds. And if that's the case, then what you're saying is if the wetlands can be extended on either side or created, that would make up for the part that has been filled in.
Correct.
And Commissioner Begman again, and your thinking then is that to take away the fill that was put there would cause more damage than to leave it there and create new wetland, because creating new wetland is difficult.
Well, not in my book, if I may say. I've had a fairly good success creating wetlands when one puts their mind in, if good supervision and monitoring happens. The idea is that, yeah, the slope is stable. The soils that were put there were good for stabilization. And there's, the erosion control blankets have been put in properly. And I expect fully that when spring comes that will be fully vegetated. So disturbing that slope might be risky, it might not be the best solution. So based on my estimations, because that's what they are, and I'm not going to claim to know exactly how much of this wetland has been filled, that it probably didn't go more than 10 or 15 feet past, because I can see the slope on the LiDAR aerial photography kind of extend that toe of slope, pre-existing toe of slope extended about 10 to 15 feet on average. So if I have a distance across, so I have the two flags that I have, one on one side and one on the other, and Jamie can probably show those pictures also. Give me the east-west, if you will, limits of the wetland. So extending in about 15 feet on average will give me about something along the lines of 500 to 600 square feet of wetland disturbance, and that's estimated. And that can be more than doubled around this isolated wetland once I properly delineate its limits. Right now, what I did is I dug a few holes and kind of determined, because it's a slight bowl, if you will, so you can almost see where it is, because that's where the water has been traditionally coming from that pipe, which is probably one of the reasons why that's maintained its hydrology as wetland, even though the soils are pretty disturbed. So once the limits are delineated, then I know exactly how far I would need to go to make up, even if I have to do a 2-to-1, say, and then come up with a robust plan for that entire area.
And Commissioner Vegemon, again, when you come up with that plan, that new made slope and flat area, is that's a 3-to-1 slope, for instance, and we would have to know about nutrient removal, and if that's going to be a fertilized lawn for people to hang out on or whatever for woodwinds, how that would affect the wetland, that all the fertilizers or herbicides or whatnot going right into a wetland.
Sure. So my understanding is that, and attorney can chime in, or Mr. Supa too, is that not only, as a matter of fact, I already talked to a landscape architect, and I basically said, we're not ready for a plan yet, because she was willing to take my information, my part of the plan, and include in her plan. But what the applicant or the property owner wants to do is to put a screen up there, another buffer, if you will, at the top of the slope, because he wants to screen the auto place next door that is not particularly aesthetic, at least for people that use his business. So I think there will be a buffer up there with plantings, which will preclude having fertilizer and pesticides right up against the slope and then running down But obviously, we will consider your comments there too and make sure that that's something that we can accomplish with a plan.
Yes, if I may, Attorney Michael Leone, once again. As you can see in what's, I believe, labeled photograph 1 in Mr. Logan's report, at the very top there, there's that gazebo. Pretty much that would be the end of any useful property that Woodwinds would use, and that would be about where there is some screening there now, but there would be more screening. So no, there would be no. This is not the lawn feature that he'd be looking to use for wedding photographs or anything else. So it would be cut off because, as Mr. Logan opined to, there is a auto shop across the river there, and it's not really useful for any sort of event. So yes, you wouldn't have to worry about fertilization or anything else. The only thing that might be up there is, depending on the plantings, there might be some gator bags just to water them.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So typically in this kind of case where there's been activity that was not permitted that an individual wants to keep, the commission would require an application for that activity. I think that there's going to be a bit of a balance of after the fact type seeking of approval and some activity that might fall still within the cease and correct. I think the commission's going to want to see a formal site plan with grading on it. I think that's consistent with their past practice, and I think that it's also going to align with other town reviews such as the floodplain management and zoning. As far as I think this would be 6.8 grading and earthwork, special exception approval with planning and zoning if you're looking to keep that material on site. To that end, I certainly understand and respect the challenges with getting a surveyor available, and I wish you luck with the additional names you've received. So I think that the main concern tonight is timeline, and I don't know how much we can necessarily address that, given that you're still trying to find availability. Obviously, the owner of Woodwinds is going to want, this resolved so that he's got something in place for his season. So I guess I don't want to cut things short, but we also want to hear from the individual that did the research into the material on site. But I think kind of the next step is, when do we next check in, knowing that everyone's, and when can we expect that application? So I don't know if the commission wants to request that we get an update in 2 weeks with where they are and when we're expecting that application, or if we want to try. I don't want to set a deadline that's just not going to be reasonable, but I also don't want the area to not be stabilized come the spring. So maybe it's that
2 weeks seems a little tight given nature and the issue of finding a month probably works more for me than 2 weeks.
Yeah, at best we would just have an update on where they're at. So I would agree. I don't think 2 weeks is really going to get us very far. And I would suggest that, if in the interim, and any of the party wants to reach out, and we can try and coordinate a review discussion with some of the departments that would ultimately be reviewing this activity, if you would find that helpful.
So yeah, Michael Leone for the respondent. Yeah, I'm happy to work with you over the next few weeks, and I'm sure Mr. Logan as well, because obviously he's more of the expert. As he indicated, we already do have a landscape architect engaged. I don't know. I know that everybody wants the survey to delineate all this, but I don't know if a proposed plan from the landscape architect with the type of plantings and vegetation would be something you want now prior to that, or how you'd want to handle that. But that's something that we could certainly move along and would be, I'm assuming, useful and helpful with the application process.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I agree. It certainly would be. The only hesitancy I have is that if that surveying work comes back and makes you realize you have to adjust that slope either for grade, the steepness of the slope and or because the toe of the slope's in the floodplain, that's going to obviously impact your planting plan. If you want to start working on your planting plan and submit where you're at, and with the understanding that it might always change based on that spatial information, that's certainly a possible way to move forward, but I also understand plans cost money. Do we want to hear from Jackson Environmental and then maybe kind of summarize where we're expecting things to go from there?
Sounds reasonable.
I think I saw them
Good
on
evening.
the call.
Mr.
My name
Jackson?
is William. My name is William Jackson. I am a registered soil scientist and a licensed environmental professional in the state of Connecticut, and my office is in the town of Berlin. And I was asked by the property owner, Mr. Supa, to provide a characterization of the material that was installed and graded on site. I understand that approximately 400 cubic yards of an organic soil was installed in December 2025, or November of 2025, rather. I was asked about soil characterization, and first step in that is to evaluate the origin and the nature of the material in question. And I interviewed Mr. Aaron Giroli of G&G Earth Materials, and I understand that this organic soil is a composted material derived from yard leaves, grass clippings, woody material, brush stumps, and some residual soil that Mr. Giroli identified as scrapings from land clearing activities. According to Mr. Giroli, this material was composted for a 12-month period at their facility in Branford, screened prior to delivery. And Mr. Giroli stated that he did not use any materials like manures or excavated mineral soils. He did not accept treated wood or scrap wood lumber. And the organic product was simply an organic soil from composting operations. And based on that, I did not identify any readily apparent constituents of concern in the soil, in the organic soil to sample for. And so I do not recommend sampling of the soil. So if you have questions, I'm happy to take questions.
This is Commissioner Begman. Jamie or Chairman Basserman, is it a common practice if to accept the professionals, whoever was the composter who put the soil there, take their word for whatever they put there? Is that commonly done?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I cannot recall off the top of my head many situations where the commission has specifically requested this information, and I think I think the commission has gotten letters from the supplier in the past. So I guess my answer is going to be I don't know that there's a lot of precedents that I'm familiar with on this topic to speak to precedents on the matter.
Commissioner Bengman again, do we have that letter or from
sorry. So in this case, we have the letter summarized from Jackson Environmental that essentially summarizes what was just presented to the commission. Yes.
And if you would, sorry, Michael Leone for the respondent, if you would need an affidavit from Mr. Garoli, I'm sure we could obtain one well prior to whenever we continue this matter.
And Commissioner Begon again. So just to be, the soil test that was done on October 7th, 2025 was done before the material was put down, or is it?
This is William Jackson. I spoke to Mr. Grilli about that test that was done by the Agricultural Experiment Station in New Haven. The test was primarily for the soil texture and for various nutrients, common metals and compounds that would be considered nutrients in soil. And Mr. Grilli indicated that that particular test was representative of composted material that was ultimately delivered to this property.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, when there's mitigation involved and material has to get brought in for purposes of making sure there's a good base for the plants to survive, we don't get any testing of that material that's brought in for mitigation purposes, do we?
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. Oftentimes the plans may call out that there be testing, but it doesn't state that the testing needs to be provided to the inland wetland office. And I would say we have not been in the practice of receiving it. Not to say that it, wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing to look at. But I mean, what it boils down to is that generally speaking, in those instances, a wetland scientist should be overseeing everything and they should be reviewing it. And honestly, they're more qualified than I am to look at the soil samples and results. So I think that kind of speaks to what Mr. Logan was saying earlier about oversight is key. Of course, there was no oversight on the placement of material on site already. So
yeah, this is Commissioner Basserman. Probably the best we can do in moving this thing to completion is the comment about maybe an affidavit from Mr. Garoli so that we have something in the record that says, at least from a wetland standpoint, we did the appropriate due diligence in making sure that the material that was brought in was appropriate for what we were trying to do here.
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. I do want to note that the zoning wetland enforcement officer did want to raise a point regarding the pipe shown in George Logan's report. Heather, if you want to.
Sorry, I was looking through, I had some stuff on the screen. So the pipes, when I initially went out for my investigation, though, they were not actually attached to anything. There were two pipes, and if I can share my screen, I can put the picture up, but there were two pipes that were tossed to the side and not actually attached to anything. I don't know where they came from. There is another pipe on the far side of the property, well, far side from where this activity took place, at the driveway side, so almost exactly kitty corner. There is a pipe on that side that leads into this area, because I do believe that that water gathers up there from when it rains from sloping downhill. So that pipe, I know, goes into where this fill is, but initially there was no pipe coming out. Yeah. Let's see if I can figure out how to share my screen and show you the picture that I'm referring to. Okay. I actually don't know how to share my screen, because I don't usually have to.
There should be a share button at the bottom of the screen.
I was going to say, this is Attorney Leone again. If you go push where you see the microphone and the stop video and move to almost the middle, you'll see a little box with arrow.
Share. Okay. Good luck. You're going to see all the other weird stuff I have up. Let's see if I can get some of that down. Okay. Yeah. This is what I'm trying to share. Can anybody see that?
Are you trying to share your photos from your first site visit?
I'm trying. Well, it's just the one picture. It's specifically image 0522, but I.
Yeah. Are you sharing from your Dropbox?
Is that it? Did you guys see it now?
No.
No. All right. I'll pull up the pictures and you tell me when we get to the right one.
Okay. I can't even give you the number. Thank you. I'll have to practice the screen sharing for the future. So, no, actually here, it's not going to, I don't know if it's in those pictures. It should be off to the side.
So I think, yeah. So this is below, looking at the slope, obviously. And then I think the pipe is shown in the pictures from George Logan's report is somewhere in this area. And you can see that there's a pipe. I don't know that it's the same pipe, but there's a pipe, and then I think in the next picture you can see there's a second pipe. There's two pipes. I mean, from the pictures, I can't see a pipe coming out from the fill, and I don't recall seeing one when we went out in December. I don't know. At that point, the erosion control blanket had been installed, so maybe it was behind the blanket.
That pipe, that picture that you're seeing, I don't believe that was. I think that was the day that I went out there, and
I was not out there this day.
Yeah, those pipes were leaning up on the side, and the guys actually had moved them while I was there, just shuffling them around, not trying to like move them one way or the other. They were leaning against a tree, and they made them so they were laying on the ground, but just coincidentally.
All right, we're not going to make a decision tonight, other than decide when it's appropriate to reconvene or get an update and what that consists of.
So, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, we do have to continue the show cause hearing to a particular time. So I would recommend that we continue it to, let's say, we continued a lot of things to February 26th. Let's say March 12th. And depending on what additional information we have, I would say it'd be really nice if we can have at bare minimums a full wetland delineation of at least the wetland that's not under the slope, the fill material. That would be beneficial, I think, for consideration, and an update on when an application will be submitted. And hopefully you're able to find a surveyor that can help you get that moving along. Does that make sense? I'm going to start with the commissioners. Does that make sense to you? I'm not seeing any.
Works for me.
Works for this mine too. George Logan, for the record.
All right, and I was going to say for the respondents.
If it works for Mr. Logan, we'll make it work.
All right, so we're going to continue the show cause hearing to March
March.
12th.
Yep.
Yes. And if we're still looking at a long time for the survey, then I would say at that point it might be appropriate to try and have something for a planting plan at least. Because at that point we're really kind of starting to approach the spring planting season, and we don't want to fully miss that, even if it's just a temporary stabilization plan.
Sure. I mean, we do have the stabilization of the wood chips, but that's temporary.
Michael Leone for the applicant. Not that I want to draw this out any longer, but I do want to know, we are under some constraints because Eversource can come back in there and clear cut whatever they want ever again. So I think we're going to have to be creative with our planting structure, because that's what really touched this whole thing off. It wasn't Mr. Supa going down there. It was Eversource going down there and clear cutting all the vegetation, including the vegetation in the wetlands. And it's my understanding from your office that there's really nothing we can do to stop them.
Amy Frederick and the wetland agent, I don't disagree. There are lines there. Eversource does have the right to maintain those lines. And yes, so you want to make sure you're planting things that they're not going to consider as interfering with their infrastructure.
George Logan for the
noted.
record. Yeah, so I have plenty of experience with Eversource, and so anything that touches close to 15 feet and is gone. So you have to keep everything under 15 feet.
Okay. I think we've got a direction and a time frame. Good luck with those additional contacts that you have. Hopefully some of that will bear fruit.
We hope so.
And maybe we'll find some soil scientists too while we're at it.
All right.
Thank you all.
We continued season correct 25-1201. We now have other business, the cause annual meeting.
Yes, last
I
call.
guess the registration is open.
Last call. Does anyone want to be registered for the cause meeting? We will send one last final push tomorrow morning to commissioners that are not here. But
one last email. Is that what you're saying, Jenny?
yeah, we'll just contact the people that are not present. So if you're here, this is your last call.
Jamie, this is Commissioner Gutklowski. What time does that meeting start? What time does it last? It's an all-day meeting?
It's an all-day meeting. It is on a Wednesday. There's no pressure to attend, but we like to make these opportunities available to commissioners. It's interesting to learn about. So this training is mostly focused on the soil science side of things, more on the technical side, more geared towards wetland professionals than commissioners, but it's interesting to see that the other side, so to speak. We lost.
Just for the reference, I think it starts 8:30 to 8:30 to 5. It's a full day.
Okay, that's everybody got notice about the cause. We have no agent approval, no correspondence. That only leaves one thing left on the agenda, and that's adjournment. And I would say at this hour, have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.